вставши на коліно, своє полкове знамено, дивлюсь на нього я востаннє, у нез'ясованій журбі, всю кров мою, всі скитання, воно вібрало у собі, всю кров Прийшли окупанти до нас в Україну, форма новенька, воєнні машини та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались в кущі, щоб лаптем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у чах перегрівся навар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Приперли зі сходу до нас барани для восстановлення
великої страни.
Найкращий пастух баранячий хотар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Їх доводи всяке озброєння різне, потужні ракети, машини залізні, у нас на всі доводи є коментар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Вони захопити хотіли нас зразу, а ми зачаїли на орків образу з російських бандитів, робить примар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російська поліція справи заводить, там пивцю рашистів ніяк не знаходить, хто винен, що в нашому полі глухар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Веде пропаганду кремлівський урод, слова пропаганди ковтає народ, тепер нове слово знає цар.
Байрактар.
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 Yes.
The Leaf Street Army sends its regards.
О, бля! Игорь!
Hello everyone, I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 346 of the news, and it's good to see you all once again.
And of course, we're going to be covering the past 24 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine, and today we've seen some very interesting trends on the front lines as large amounts of videos have been recorded showing larger groups of Russian units up to the platoon size surrendering and handing themselves over to the Ukrainians. This is coming at the exact same time that reports are claiming that most Russian units are starting to run out of ammunition and food in some parts of the lines. But before we get there, there's a very interesting thing to notice, and a question that I have. If the Russian soldiers are running out of ammunition and food, I don't know how, because if we move to Volgograd and we look at some interesting pictures from the other day, we'll notice that there should have been at least a couple of extra magazines, or at least a couple of extra rounds of ammo that could have been spread along the front lines, because it appears that the honor guard at Putin's visit to Volgograd the other day had their guns removed from the guard, and they were now unarmed. Let me show you all this real quick, and let me show you all the comparison in between 2018 right here. Notice Putin is near the wreath, he is laying the wreath, and the honor guard back here has most likely an SKS rifle. If we fast forward from 2018 and up into 2023, we'll notice that now all of the honor guards do not have rifles. The rifles are completely gone.
Oh, that's funny.
That is pretty funny, and also it shows that apparently they have such an indication that people are, in the military at least, so disillusioned with this war that they have to strip them of firearms that might even have the possibility of being loaded over the fear that they could just shoot them. So you can see that's fairly interesting. I'm just wondering, where did some of that 7.62 ammo go? I'm sure it could have been used in something, but I'm sure it actually went into some corrupt guy's hands. He took the rifles right out of the honor guard's hands and sold them on the street right outside the building for about $120 and maybe a pack of cigarettes. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on from that little interesting bit of news that we were able to catch on to in the Volgograd area, and now we're moving on up into Moscow real quick before we get into huge news from Germany. So the little clip that we saw up here is that a soldier was having a snow day, and of course y'all may know that snowfall has become very prevalent in eastern Russia and mostly north of the Zaporizhian area. Snow is plentiful, but this guy looks to have had a different kind of snow. It looks like he may have snorted some of the snow, and it has caused some adverse effects. Here is the soldier having a snow day. And getting past the weird music, we can see the man here, he has really enjoyed his snow. In fact, it looks like he's almost on the verge of creating some yellow snow. And as he walks around, we can also see that his pants, his Ratnik camouflage pants, are sitting at the bottom of his legs, and it looks like he's maybe trying to be in an Eminem music video. I'm not really sure. He's continuing to convulse around. He is still convulsing. He's now looking at the wall. He's realizing that it's a cream color. He's now turning back around with the coat still on his arms. And he's really trying to analyze how good the snow was. It was a cold day out, and this man really took advantage of it. You can even see some of the snow is on his uniform. And as they say in Dune, the spice must flow, and it must be flowing because this guy is sucking up all of it. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on from that interesting little clip. It's very interesting to see that some Russian soldiers have resorted to the acts they have in this brutal winter filled with snow and cold. But as we move on out of Russia, because beyond the literal brain rot we just watched, that's all there is today that happened in Russia, we're now moving on into Germany, where we got an incredibly interesting announcement today, and something I did not expect, and it appears that most people were caught by surprise with this announcement. The Germans have announced that they'll be sending an additional 88 tanks to Ukraine. These 88 tanks are not Leopard 2s, they are Leopard 1s. And these are fairly interesting. They are older, but a decent amount of militaries have been using them up until the present day. These are, of course, not the most advanced militaries in the world with the largest budgets, but they have been modernized a decent bit to where you could say that a Leopard 1A5, or any modern iteration of the Leopard 1, like the Leopard 1A7, is as capable as a T-72B or a T-72B3, although that's really getting into hair splitting, and the T-72B3 might be able to just boast a couple of extra upgrades over the most advanced Leopard variants. But we can see them here inside of their storerooms. We can also see, interestingly enough, that some of these Leopards appear to have... Let me check. I gotta make sure on this. Leopard 1A7. Wait, Leopard 1A6. Let me find this here, because I swear these look like Leopard 1A6s. And according to the pictures, it doesn't seem... Here's one of the Leopard ones we're looking at right there, with the same turret design and the armor layout. But I don't really know what kind of variant that is specifically, so let's see. Does it say? It says a Leopard 1 CFB Borden 2, but I don't think that's the exact variant of the tank. We can see a Leopard 1A5 right there. We can see a Leopard 1 right there as well, but once again with a similar turret layout. Unfortunately, I don't know what exact variant Leopard 1 turret this is, but one thing that is incredibly interesting to note about it is that they're going to be getting an entire 50, well, not 50, 88 of them, which is incredibly impressive, and we can see some of the pictures of them right there. Now, one question I have is, considering that they have been phased out of German service for a long time and the Germans will be providing them, are these going to be good, or will they have to go through a massive amount of efforts to try and make them operational? We're not really sure about that, because we really don't know about the German maintenance procedures on these Leopard 1s and how many of them are, I guess you could say, capable and ready to go. The German government also has declared that they'll be buying 15 Leopard AA guns from Qatar and transferring them to Ukraine, along with ammunition also purchased from the Qataris. So that's a fairly interesting thing as well, because it appears that the Germans are finally trying to find a solution to the Swiss problem, and they're now going to be getting the ammunition and additional Leopards from Qatar. Oddly enough, Qatar is in the middle of the Middle East, in the Persian Gulf right here, and also this is where the World Cup, I believe, was held this year. Last year. But still, fairly interesting to hear, and it's good to know that the Germans are providing as much support as possible. If y'all are wondering, let me go and Google up some information here. The Leopard 1, in particular, because no one's really talked about the Leopard 1. Everyone's always talked about the Leopard 2. The Leopard 1 was the German main battle tank that came before the Leopard 2, oddly enough. And interestingly as well, there is no similarities in between the Leopard 2 and the Leopard 1, rather than their name. The Leopard 2 was a completely organic design, brand new, completely original. It didn't use anything from the Leopard 1. But the Leopard 1 was introduced into service, let's see, let me make sure I'm correct on this, in 1965. So going off of that, let's go look at a T-72. And a T-72 was introduced into service in 1973, about 7 years later. So that means that a Leopard 1 is about 7 years older than a T-72A, and also a T-72B. The T-72B3 is heavily upgraded, but still underneath all of that, it is still one of those 50-year-old T-72s. So the Leopard 1 could actually stand a fairly good chance, and some of the highly upgraded ones, like the Leopard 1A5 we see here in the picture, have modern thermals, they have night vision, they also use some of the most advanced ammunitions that a 105mm gun of that design can use, and they're also fairly decent. These things were not one of the most exported tanks during the Cold War for no reason. They were incredibly competent and highly capable, and so hopefully this carries over into the modern day, because while it is an aging vehicle now, it is going up against incredibly old and aged Soviet-era vehicles that the Russians are currently using. And so this thing, instead of having an overwhelming advantage over the Russians, it'll probably be an equal head-on, head-to-head kind of comparison in between the two. But moving on from that great news from the Germans, and it's good to know they'll be providing an entire 88 of these, along with 15 additional Leopards, we're now moving on into the next bit of news inside of Germany, and I moved this one down to Dresden just because. We can see that the Germans are also going to be providing even more anti-mine vehicles. We can see that one of them has already had the Ukrainian flag painted on them, and they'll be delivering 3 of these to Ukraine, along with additional Iris-T missiles. And we can see another picture of it right there. This honestly looks like the thing they put on the roof, Matthew, in at Chernobyl to get rid of some of the lead up there.
Oh,
it looks like that.
the Joker.
Yeah, it looks like that. But
somewhat, yeah.
But anyways, it is a pretty cool vehicle. Hopefully we'll see it out there, and hopefully it's useful. Of course, we'll just have to wait and see, but the Ukrainians desperately need help with mine clearing because there are a load of mines left over in previously occupied areas. Now we're going to be moving on all the way across the sea into the United States, where we got a brand new announcement of a new aid package and everything that'll be included in it, all the fine trimmings. The total packages, the two packages, total $2.17 billion in new military assistance to Ukraine, $425 million worth of arms and equipment from the Department of Defense inventories under the Presidential Drawdown Authority, as well as $1.75 billion in additional support under the Department of Defense's Ukraine Security Assistance Initiative. And so, here's the list. They'll be providing additional ammunition for the HIMARS, additional 155mm shells, additional mortar rounds for the 120s, 190 heavy machine guns with thermal imagery systems and associated ammunition to cover unmanned aerial systems, 181 mine-resistant MRAP vehicles, 250 Javelin anti-armor systems, another 2,000 Javelin rockets, claymores, no number given, demolitions, munitions, cold weather gear, helmets, and other field equipment. Will also be providing, let's see here, 2 Hawks. Ew. I'm not a big fan of the Hawks, so reading that's kind of meh. Anti-aircraft guns, we didn't get any information as to what those will be. Equipment to integrate Western air defense launchers, missiles, and radars with Ukraine's air defense systems. Equipment to sustain Ukraine's existing air defense capabilities. Air defense generators, counter unmanned aerial systems, 4 air surveillance radars, 20 counter mortar radars, spare parts for counter artillery radars, Puma unmanned aerial systems, precision-guided rockets, secure communications equipment, medical supplies, and additional funding for training, maintenance, and sustainment. So quite a large package, and of course providing vital, I guess you could say, continuance of the support that we've already given and making sure that it continues to be used by providing ammunition and a couple of extra goodies here and there that will increase the overall number of the Ukrainians' anti-tank abilities over the next coming months. With that, we're now moving out of the United States and somewhere back across the sea, and now we're on into Ukraine, where we got a very interesting picture today that caused me some concern because if I remember correctly, the Chernobyl exclusion zone, especially anything metallic within the zone, is fairly radioactive, still to this day. And we got a picture today of a Ukrainian soldier that was conducting training in the zone, and he's sitting inside of one of the bumper cars, and he took a picture. That scares the hell out of me because I feel like his feet are in the middle of like a radioactive, pretty much inferno down there. Hopefully that's not the case. Hopefully they check that. But it is pretty cool to see this picture. And like the young kids say these days, which I am one of them, this picture goes hard, Matthew.
Yeah, I guess you could say that. Really spicy, maybe?
Really, I guess you could say, like, Imagine Dragons, it's radioactive.
Yeah, I guess you could say that.
And you could also put that parental explicit advisory thing in the bottom corner of this, and it would look like a album thing. But anyways.
Trap album cover, you mean?
Yeah, trap album cover. Anyways, that's the end of that little picture. I just thought it'd be neat to show y'all, and hopefully he's not getting any kind of glows or anything after this picture was taken. And so we're now going to be moving on from that little picture and on down into Vinnytsia, where today we saw a picture being taken in a field near the town showing that a Russian KH-101 cruise missile had been shot down on its course. It apparently did not explode, and it also did not reach its target, but we can see some of the remains of this missile just sitting right here in the field. Very nice to see, and hopefully this kind of stuff keeps up. Every missile that is shot down is about several $1 million wasted by the Russian armed forces in an attempt to probably attack the civilian population, and each one that's shot down is not only a loss of money for the Russian armed forces, but a lack of an ability to strike the Ukrainians, so it's a win-win all around. We're now moving on from this little bit of news as well, and on into our location unknowns, which we have some incredibly interesting ones today. Starting off with our first video, we saw that the Russians couldn't shoot down a drone, and they paid dearly for this I guess you could say, misdoing. Here's the clip. You see them shooting at the drone with some kind of black powder weapons. I'm just kidding, it's smokeless, but due to the cold, it makes it look... Wait a minute, that was Igor. That was Meteor. I just realized
I was about to say.
And we can see the little gizmo flying right there. And it got him.
Ще подивимося, як то бачив на власні очі пілот FPV дрона Мольфар. Шема пілота,
We now see the drone flying in.
FPV дрона, дивимося. І баба!
He has a lot of fun with his job. You can tell he does. And with that's the end of the clip. But it's good to see that Madyar was able to get an extra 2 today, and hopefully they can keep this stuff up. They got to keep this stuff up. With that, we're now moving on into the next clip, where we also saw a Ukrainian raiding a mortar. It was specifically a fairly big and beefy mortar, a 240 millimeter mortar. So let's see this thing fire.
Постріл!
Very nice. What
Шановні
do they
журі.
rate it? Ah, the video
Ваші
pause.
оцінки? Хорош.
Dang, they gave it low scores. They gave it like 2s and 1s. Do they not like it?
Dang, tough crowd.
This is about to turn into the menu, Matthew, introducing the mess. But anyways,
Yeah.
we're now moving on from this little clip and on into the next one, because that was pretty cool, pretty neat to see, and I like that they're still having a little bit of fun as they fire off this artillery. And we're now moving on to watch a Russian in a foxhole get hit. So we can see them dropping the bomblet down there. And and the ammunition is going up. We see one Russian crawling out of the side. He's like a young college kid at a frat party where the cops are busting down the block, and he's hopping out of the window to run away. We can see that apparently he's stopped outside the window to see the rest of his friends get arrested or something similar. All in all, it looks like this Russian will go ammunitionless. With that, that's the end of the clip. And it's good to see that the Ukrainians are continuing to rain down the fire onto the Russians and make sure that their ammunition blows up and some of them get sent flying. They always say, you know, I will do this when pigs fly, and I guess that day has finally come. And so with that, we're now moving on into the next clip of Location Unknown News, where we saw the Russian losses for today, and once again the numbers are speaking and also shooting incredibly high. We can see that the Russians lost another 840 Russian soldiers today, an incredibly high number, but once again, not as high as the amount of times Putin has found himself crapping himself as he walked down the staircase of his mansion. We also saw 6 additional armored personnel carriers destroyed. This is about as many times as Lavrov has gone and lied to the world, times a factor of about 100. We also saw that 4 supply trucks were destroyed, 4 tanks were also destroyed today as well, 3 artillery pieces, a drone, 2 MLRSs, an aircraft, and we were able to confirm today that that was in fact an Su-25 shot down over Kherson. And we also saw, and Matthew, I hope that you're salivating, Matthew, because the next course is going to be your absolute favorite. 2 Bobcat skid steers destroyed in a single day.
2?
2.
In one day?
In one day.
You gotta be kidding me.
I'm not kidding.
2 fake bobcats killed in one day.
2 fake ones. Next thing you know, Matthew, they're going to be buying them from China. They're going to be buying the Qing Long or whatever it was that had the Mr. Beast logo on the back of it. But still,
Alibaba gets a suspicious bulk order for bobcats.
we don't ask any questions. The CEO, after what he went through about a year or 2 ago, he's like, we don't ask any questions anymore. We just do whatever the orders ask of us. We're sending them. But still, it's neat to see that the Russians have lost a decent amount of vehicles today. But once again, that casualty number here is staggering. Unbelievably staggering. And if we go to yesterday's report right here of Russian losses over time, and we look at them, we will see that the infantry losses have started to pretty much exponentially skyrocket over the previous months, and it appears that it's not slowing down. It's actually climbing even faster with each passing day. And oddly enough, once again, to go over this, every other kind of loss you can see on the overall graph is slowly starting to dwindle. And this shows, like we said yesterday, that as the support vehicles begin to get destroyed to the point they're not used much or there isn't any of them left, the number of infantry casualties are starting to skyrocket because they don't have any support any longer. And now with the poor training and no support, they get wiped off the field at larger numbers than they ever did. This is also something I tried to research today. but I was not able to find a clear answer on before this stream, is that most of the casualties sustained in the Second World War in between the Nazi Germans and the Soviet Union were sustained within the last year of fighting, and out of that, almost a majority of those casualties were sustained during the last 6 months of fighting, as both sides got desperate and the casualty numbers began to skyrocket. I was not able to find the information to back that statement up to date and show you all that source, but I do remember reading a book or watching a documentary about that some while ago. It's actually on YouTube, the video I'm thinking of, and there was also a book that I was reading at some point on the internet about it as well, but I haven't been able to find either of them. But still, the point stands that as these infantry losses begin to skyrocket, we see that the Russian acts of desperation are increasing, and I guess you could say the end of the war is drawing even closer. Unfortunately, I can't find the stats that I'm talking about for World War II to back that up, but on this one, I'm just going to have to say, trust me, bro. I don't like saying that, but trust me, bro. I'm largely correct. As the numbers continue to skyrocket in terms of infantry losses and troop losses, we'll probably see that the war starts rounding around the corner and nearing its end finally, although it could still be a good whiles away. We're now moving on from the casualty report from today and also the overall trends that we've been seeing, and we're now moving on into our next clip of Location Unknown News, where we saw a Ukrainian sniper in action. When you see the Russian walking along the tree line, we see the sniper taking a good gander at him. We see him firing, and ooh, wow, what a shot.
How far away is that? Can you tell?
It appears that the camera down here is saying a distance of 600 meters.
Damn, it looks farther than that.
Yeah,
I have no idea how they were able to hit that shot.
That's quite a shot. I'll show you how far that is on the actual map. We'll go down to Deep State and we'll pull out a ruler. So let's say he was in Bakhmut. You know, let's say he was on this ridge line here, right here. So let's pull out the ruler. 600 meters away is, let's see, about that far away. That's how far he shot.
Jeez.
That's
some
quite a
distance.
shot. Yeah, that's one hell of a distance right there. I think that would be one of the longest range shots we've ever tried. And to be honest with y'all, since I use nothing but iron sights, I've never been able to land a shot at 600 yards because, you know, I'm looking at iron sights. I don't have a scope. So that is one hell of a shot, and very impressive to see that he was not able to just pull it off, but it was able to land the shot as well. An impressive testament to that sniper, his training, and also the abilities of his rifle. We're now going to be moving on from that and into our last bit of Location Unknown News, where we also saw a wheeled PKV machine gun. Or a KPV, sorry, I got the abbreviation wrong. Here's the clip, though.
Красавчик работает.
See them looking over the fields with this giant machine gun. You see them preparing the gun, charging it.
His cameraman is winded.
Yeah, he is winded. They must have ran up here and set it up really quickly. We now see them firing the small gun. I say small. In a minute, I'll clarify that. It's actually massive. That's the end of the clip, but this is no small gun by any means. I kind of said that a little sarcastically, but the KPV machine gun is so large that they actually use it as an anti-aircraft gun in some installments, and if I'm correct, they also use this in the BRDM2, but I'm not exactly sure on that one, so let me see if they do. The BRDM2, the ugly little scout car that everyone in the world uses. So let me go down here to the main armament. It is actually a KPV machine gun. That is the main armament of this little scout car. So the gun you see right there behind the driver is the one that you see on that wheeled mount that they're firing off into the distance. So pretty much what they've done is they've taken the firepower of this armored scout car, they took it out of the scout car, and they pretty much put it onto a limber and then rolled it up to the front lines and fired it off. fairly interesting, and also really cool to know that that is actually the gun that's in the BRDM2, although I still think this thing is fairly ugly, and also it's so ancient that this is at a reenacting event. You can tell because there's reenactors in the background.
And that gun itself is an antique too, isn't it? I saw him hand cranking it.
Oh yeah, the KPV is fairly old. It's been in service since 1949.
Wow, that thing is really old.
Yeah, I mean, it is
It's
old.
seen battle quite a few times then.
Yeah, it's old as hell. Here's a Bangladeshi anti-aircraft mount with a whole bunch of KPVs on it. This thing is old as Methuselah. But still, not as old as a 50 cal, but considering its archaic design, this thing is quite old. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on from that little video and out of our location unknowns and on into the northeastern area, because we do have an interesting thing to show to y'all today. We actually got a video from Radio Free Europe showing what life was like under Russian occupation after they've been pushed out. This video was taken in the northern Kharkiv area, most likely around Vovchansk or the area of Chakalovsky, but I put the video up here because this is about the best way to describe the northern Kharkiv area, because it's north of the city of Kharkiv. And so, without further ado, here's the video, but it's fairly interesting and very enlightening what life was like during Russian occupation, what these people saw and what they had to deal with.
Оця машина, вона була цілий корпус, обгоріла. У ній загинув, а потім тіло його згоріло. А може й живцем горів, ми цього не знаємо. Чи, можливо, поранений був. Але машина зайнялася разом з ним всередині. Потім уже, як діти повернулися, вони знайшли якісь тут залишки кісточок, робили генетичну експертизу. Але машина ціла була. Потім вони навіть машину з трупом, з останками. Ви бачите, що з нею зробили. Ясно, що по ній же туди-сюди їздила важка техніка. Оце ж злочини орків. Оце ж все понатягували орки. Коли я приїхала 11 жовтня, проходжу, думаю, що тут за куча така? Я зайшла, в мене очі на лоб полізли. Дивіться, що, електронна техніка. Це ж тут добро і наших громадян.
And this right here is a pile of looted stuff that they found around the nearby houses, and they piled it up here and took anything valuable, computer chips and such things, out of these appliances and then just threw them into this pile. And so you can see the level of looting that the Russians pulled off just in a small village like this, because this pile is about the size of 2 Ukrainian houses in terms of their footprint.
І наших громадян. Що вони звідсіля витягували? Витягували, мабуть, же ті плати, де драгметали. От сліди злочинів їхніх. Заповідь моїм синам. Живіть дружно. Помагайте один одному. Тоді й моя душа буде там спокійною. Оце ж моя тут подружка.
Well, that gives a small idea of what life was like in a smaller village during Russian occupation, and of course we know that life under Russian occupation in larger towns like Izium or Kherson was hardly as pleasant as that. Not only did the Russians loot cities like Kherson and Izium of anything valuable or anything that they wanted, they would also go and find people who were suspected to be Ukrainian collaborators and anyone they found suspicious or had crossed the Russian army the wrong way and bring them into the police stations to be tortured. And in Kherson, we actually found indications and proof that children were also being tortured in some of those cells, and we also heard firsthand accounts from some of the children that were there as well. An incredibly unfortunate thing to think about, and it's good to know that the Ukrainians were able to push these Russians out of the area, and it's now been liberated, so the citizens that live there don't have to endure that any longer. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on from the northern Kharkiv area and on into the northeast, where we have some pretty interesting stuff to report. Not a large amount of frontline movements, of course, as usual, but it does appear that there has been a slight a very slight increase in activity in this area. But before we get to that news, we have to cover the polls, because Matthew's been throwing up some really interesting polls. Matthew always throws up really good polls, and I would like to make sure to cover them and address them and see what all of y'all have been thinking about the options and the prompts. And so with that, what do we got, Matthew?
All right, and for the first segment, we have 2 polls to address. And let's see here. For some reason, my second poll has disappeared, so I'll see if I can locate it. But the first one says, Ukraine says they will fight as long as they can for Bakhmut. Is this a wise strategic move? It looks like 54% said yes, they must hold Bakhmut, 25% said unsure, and 21% said no, it is not worth it. And on this one, I have to say I'm a little unsure, because I've heard from some folks that Bakhmut is crucial to Ukraine's defense, and I've heard some people say that they can afford to lose it and simply fall back to a better position. So I'm with the 25%. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say I think it's important for them to fight for Bakhmut as long as they can. The situation is, of course, getting serious there, especially considering that we can see the Russian envelopment or the encirclement has actually formed its 2 prongs, although it's moving incredibly slowly. It is very important for them to fight as long as they can and then withdraw as long as they're not in the risk of being encircled. If they start appearing that it will be inevitable within a small amount of time that they will be encircled, they need to immediately begin a withdrawal so that way they can save their manpower and forces for a new defensive behind the city and in the hills. But it would be nonsensical for a large part to abandon the town while there's still a moment to buy time and to inflict losses on the Russians, because once you lose that ground, especially in a defensive battle, you can't gain it back. And there may be some very good positions there still, like the ridgelines behind Bakhmut that can fire into the town, and the Ukrainians can slowly give up ground as the Russians advance and continue to fire on them and inflict massive casualties without losing many of their own and giving up land before it was time to. So I would say, in my opinion, it would be best for the Ukrainians to fight for Bakhmut as long as they can until it appears that they may be encircled and then withdraw from the town. Right now, at this moment, and we'll go to Deep State real quick, just because the poll's about Bakhmut, and if we look over the past 24 hours, today's the 3rd, we're going back to the 2nd, and we can see that, once again, the advances that have been made today are non-existent in most areas, except for the small advance in the area of Klishkivka, where it appears that they took another field. So with that in mind, it seems as though the advance is going incredibly slowly, and the 2 prongs, both to the north and the south of Bakhmut, are not really advancing at a speed that is of great concern. If they collapsed, if the line collapsed in Krasna Ora and they started to move around towards Chasiv Yar, I would say it'd be time to immediately withdraw Ukrainian forces, because an encirclement and a siege would be inevitable at that point, and it would not be smart or intelligent anymore to keep soldiers there. But that's my opinion. And take it with a grain of salt, because while I always give my opinion, sometimes it's wrong, and we don't know if it'll be wrong or right on that one. But with that, I hope we addressed that poll fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next poll has disappeared, but luckily I have a pretty decent memory, so here's what it said. The U.S. Attorney General said that forfeited funds seized from the Russian oligarch will go toward Ukrainian aid. What are y'all's thoughts? And if I remember correctly, 95% said that is a great decision, and that's a good start to helping rebuild Ukraine by building up some funds. And I believe it was only like 3% said no, that's a bad decision, which I wouldn't know why that would be. But and then there was a few that were undecided. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say it is a great thing to do. I think that this is a great way to make the Russians pay, especially considering that it's oligarchs' assets, and the oligarchs pretty much run Russia along with Putin. I think that's a very good thing to do, and I think that that should be encouraged amongst any other country that has seized Russian assets and has either liquidated them or is in the process of liquidating them, is that they should give that money in support of Ukraine. And so with that, I hope we answered that poll fairly well. That's fairly unanimous, so I feel like there's not even a point to cover it all too much. But with that, we are on to the next one. Do we have another one?
So that was our last one for now, but one is going up shortly in just a second. So moving on to our Super Chat questions. Up first, we have a $50 donation from BFO Bar, who says, Pete Reed, an American volunteer medic that was just killed, was a friend of mine. Would you consider looking into his nonprofit, Global Response Medicine, for a Sunday fundraiser?
I thank you so
and
much.
Also, sorry for your loss, by the way, as well.
Yes, I thank you for the support, and I also am terribly sorry to hear about your loss. And what was that fundraiser named again?
It's called Global Response Medicine.
So real quick, let me go through and real quick to explain how we run our fundraisers. We run our fundraisers through YouTube Give. That's a way that we can ensure that it's a 501 nonprofit and that the money is being sent exactly to where it goes, because there is a decent amount of questionability, and it also brings a lot of questionability to the, I guess you could say, the accuracy of this channel if we don't use GuideStar. So if it is in GuideStar, it's possible. If it isn't, it probably won't be. So give me the name of that one more time and we'll type it in real quick.
Global Response Medicine.
Global Response. And it appears that there is no Global Response Medicine in the GuideStar. So unfortunately, we can't run it. And of course, this will probably bring up the question of why do we not run fundraisers outside of YouTube Give? This generally goes back to the beginning of the channel. To give you all a small story and to simplify this as best as possible, we had a lot of people come to the channel when it first started, and we had blown up, and we did our first fundraiser ever, which actually raised $30,000 on the first one, and then we started getting a load of people flooding in and asking for us to help out or send them money. We had one guy who said, send me $20,000 personally and I'll buy a drone and I'll fly to Ukraine and use it. And then we had another guy who pretty much faked being a Ukrainian soldier and told some of our people on Discord at the time that he had been shot. And then the next day we called him and he said, oh, I'm perfectly fine, I'm in my barracks. And I said, well, I thought you were shot last night. Well, I was, but then I got better, and that was a really questionable thing as well. So due to those reasons, that solidified that we would only ever run fundraisers through nonprofits on GuideStar and on YouTube Give, because that's the only way we could definitely ensure that we would never get into questionable territory. And let me say this real quick. I'm not saying that fundraiser is a farce that you're presenting right there, but the thing is that if we start supporting fundraisers that are outside of YouTube Give and outside of GuideStar, then someone else comes in and says, support my fundraiser, and then we go, nah, we can't, and then they go, why not? Are you calling me a scammer? And then we've got to go and deal with that. So we largely keep them inside of YouTube Give, mostly for the safety of the viewers, so that way it doesn't end up later on that we find out that we were scammed, all the viewers were scammed, or something similar. We try and make sure that the viewers are safe as possible in supporting fundraisers and supporting Ukraine, so that way nothing bad happens. And we try our best to do that. But still, I thank you so much once again for the support, BFO Bar, and I'm terribly sorry to hear about that loss. Of course, a lot of brave people in Ukraine have been fighting, getting injured, and getting killed over everything that's been going on over there, and I hate to hear that that has reached close to you as well. And so with that, I thank you so much once again for support. I hope that addresses why we can't do it, but if you do have a nonprofit that is within the YouTube GuideStar platform, we can support that. Those are the ones that we can support. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one goes to Hal Rose, who puts in a 50 as well, and says, Enforcer, the Azov Battalion has reformed as the 3rd Assault Brigade and is looking good on Wikipedia. Slava Ukraine.
And thank you so much for the support, and thank you for sharing that with us, because we were wondering why there was now a 3rd brigade, a 3rd tank brigade that was being called Azov, because we had never heard any kind of change about that. But still, I thank you so much for the support and sharing that with us, because now we know that the Azov has moved on into a different name, has actually been organized as an official unit, and apparently they're fighting in the Bakhmut area and incredibly well from what we've seen over prior videos from that area. And so with that, I hope that answers the question fairly well, and well, the comment fairly well, and I thank you so much for the support and clarifying that for us, because we didn't know. And thank you so much for helping this channel to keep on running and being a Leaf Spring Army member. I also saw someone earlier, Matthew, to address this one real quick, because I think it may have been a new viewer. They said, I've asked a question several nights in a row, but it's never been answered because I didn't send in a super chat. To make this clear, you do not have to send in a super chat to have your question answered. You can actually send them in the live chat, and they will all be addressed, as many of them as we can, at the end of the stream. The way we run this is that it's entirely free. You can get on here without watching an ad. You don't even waste any of your time. You get right on here, right into the news. And if you enjoy the channel, you can support us through a super chat. YouTube takes 30% of that super chat, just, to be transparent with you all how that works. We get 70% of it, and you help this channel to keep running. It's the only way we keep the thing running. And if you do that, we will make sure to address your support. Thank you for it, because you're helping the channel to keep on running. And if you have a question or a comment, we address those first. And once we get through all of those, we get into the live chats. Sometimes we're able to get to all of the live chats before the end of the night. Other times we can't. And please bear with us, and I understand that some of y'all are frustrated about this. We get about 17,000 to 20,000 live chat messages a night. And if we try to address every single live chat, we physically could not. There would never be enough time for us to address 17,000 to 20,000 messages. So please bear with us on that. I know that it is sometimes frustrating, but we try our best. And so with that, I hope we addressed that fairly well. And I think we're on to the last one of this segment, and then we'll be getting right back into the news.
And yes, we are. And also, if you have a question for us, because the chat moves so fast, it's almost impossible for me to catch your question unless you tag @EnforcerMatt with no space. And I'll almost certainly see it if you do that, because it pops up in bright orange, so I can't miss it.
I'll show y'all.
But
I'll show
anyway,
y'all in the chat how to @EnforcerMatt. You'll see it right here. I added them. I didn't add any message to it, but that's how you write it. You put the @ and then EnforcerMatt with no space, and you should be able to directly message him, and that's what we call a live chat question. Rather than that, it might just pass by Matthew, and he may never notice it if you don't tag him like that. And so with that, we are on to the last one now.
All right, and the last one goes to Anthony, who puts in a $50 donation and says, once again, rest in peace to Pete Reed. He was a Marine veteran from New Jersey, volunteering in Ukraine, helping the civilians with humanitarian aid and evacuations. He died yesterday in Bakhmut when a missile hit his truck. Thank you for your service, and rest in peace, Pete.
Man, I hate to hear that. I believe I actually heard about Pete Reed's death here before the stream today, or actually yesterday. I think I actually saw something about that then. We had actually watched a video of him before on the channel a good while ago, and I believe it was a couple of weeks or a month ago, and he was helping to evacuate old citizens out of Bakhmut and into other areas, and sadly, he of course got killed. It's not easy doing what they do, and it's definitely not safe. You've got to give this guy a lot of credit, because he knew the kind of risks he was getting into, and he knew it was possible that he could get mortally wounded one day and die. But every single day, he went out there and helped out and tried to get these people out of there, regardless of the danger it brought to him. Truly selfless in every single aspect of what selfless is, and certainly a role model for other foreign volunteers that have been helping out around there. And so, of course, rest in peace to Reed, who, of course, passed away because of that missile attack. And also, I think it's terrible to know, because if I remember correctly, he wasn't even armed. He was an unarmed volunteer operating behind the lines that the Russians appeared to either have indirectly targeted him with a mass barrage once again on a civilian area, or to have directly targeted him and his evacuation team and killed him. And so that I thank you for bringing that up, and I also thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, so that way we can continue to cover the stories of all the people that have been in over in Ukraine, both the Ukrainians and the foreign volunteers that continue to fight there and continue to try and help Ukraine to remain free. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope we addressed that fairly well, and rest in peace to Reed. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on from this question segment and on into the northeastern area of the front line, where we've seen some interesting developments today. And of course, that interesting development is that the Russians have moved no man's land a little bit, and we've also seen a small Ukrainian advance through the fields north of the Seversky Donetsk River. We don't really know what this is entailing. It appears that the Russians are attempting to strengthen the defensive position of Dubrova near the area of Kremenna, and it appears that the Ukrainians may be falling back because of that. Beyond that, however, there has not been any major frontline changes in the northeastern area, and it appears that once again the battlefield has fallen into a status quo. Well, not antebellum, because it's not before the war, but a status quo of a sort. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on into the video clips that we got from the area, starting off with our one near Kuzmivka, where we saw some Ukrainians having to get a M777 out of the frozen winter mud and starting fires to try and get the ground soft enough. So here's the clip. You see them using a chainsaw trying to get the ground softened up somehow.
Wait, they're just cutting the ground?
Yeah, they're just cutting the ground. Now they're starting fires near the back pedestals. And we also have to mute it now. But they're starting fires to try and soften up the ground, because it's frozen so solid that the supporting legs have just gotten stuck. Now you see them breaking up the ground with a sledgehammer. And that's the end of the clip, but it shows you how severe the frost in the cold can affect military operations in any area, especially in the Northeast. It pretty much stops anything from operating effectively. And we can see right here that these Ukrainians are having to go through massive amounts of effort and loads of creativity to try and fix this issue of why this M777 is stuck in the mud. We're now going to be moving on further down the line and past the area and into Kreminna, where we also saw a Stugna hitting an APC.
Плюс.
You can see the Stugna launcher looking at the vehicle. You can see the Stugna on its way. And it appears that it's hit. The ammunition is now cooking off. The crew has definitely been taken out. It appears to have hit the frontal area of the BMP, most likely taking out the commander and the driver. And according to the caption, there may have been some crew or troops inside the BMP as well. So we don't know how many of them were taken out, but an entire BMP along with its crew and maybe some additional infantry were wiped out in a single video. Quite nice to see, and hopefully that keeps up. We're now going to be moving a little bit further behind the lines and in the area of Yampol, where we saw Ukrainian MLRS firing to support the front lines today. It may have been against a small Russian push around the area south of Dubrova. And so here's the clip. You see the MLRS firing in 2 rocket bursts, and now just unloading them all. That's the end of the clip, but a really cool little video to see, and hopefully that MLRS was hitting the Russian forces in the area and halting or still slowing their push that they conducted today. We're now going to be moving on out of the Yampol area, and now we're moving on down into Bakhmut, and we've had some very interesting things occur in Bakhmut today. Once again, going over the frontline analysis here over the past 24 hours, we've seen that a small Russian advance has been made north of Klishchiivka, claiming more of the southern ridgeline and pushing closer to Ivanivsky and Chasiv Yar. The supply line, as far as we know, is still open, along with the M03 in the area of Slovyansk, and this appears to be keeping the front line inside of the town of Bakhmut itself running and keeping the Ukrainian forces fighting, which is, of course, good to know. This, however, has come into high loss. The Russians once again have lost 860 soldiers killed today, and we can see that due to the lack of support vehicles and the lack of the losses thereof, the Russian infantry are really having a hard time making any ground at this point. If the Russians want to make ground in this area, they'll most likely have to dedicate more armored vehicles and more armored personnel carriers, which they do not have and cannot afford to expend, and they'll probably be losing a decent amount of them as a result. Once again, it's a quagmire for the Russians because they just don't have the offensive ability anymore to carry through on an offensive like this at a rapid enough speed. But moving on into the northern area around Soledar, we did see some Russian soldiers get captured today, once again reiterating the idea that the Russians may be running out of ammunition, as this guy literally came crawling out of an abandoned building to surrender. We see a Ukrainian soldier right here aiming his gun at him, making sure he's not pulling anything slick. We can see him climbing on out of the rubble. And you see the white armband on his right arm, once again made out of some kind of a washcloth or something similar. And we now see him climbing on out. The AK has been abandoned somewhere, and that's the end of the clip. But you can see right there, once again, another Russian prisoner has been captured. And this is the only video we got today of a single Russian soldier being captured on film. Beyond this clip, we'll see about 4 or 5 at a time, and all the way up to, I believe, 10 at a time being captured. We're now moving on into the next clip around the Soledar area once more, where we saw some shooting occurring in the area. And so, here's the clip. You see them firing at the Russian forces. When you hear that $5 McDonald's microphone.
Would you like a Big Mac?
That one guy on the group call who has the cheap mic. You see them continue to fire as a Russian runs across the open field. Also, real quick, just to make sure we clearly show this, you can see the white armbands on them right there. So these are not Ukrainians, these are Russians, and the Ukrainians are shooting at them as they run across the open field. These Russians, also to explain this, are not retreating or running away. They're most likely trying to reposition from one building to the next. We see this happen a lot currently in the Battle of Bakhmut on both sides, because there's really no way to have any kind of cover in an urban setting unless you're running from Khrushchevka block to Khrushchevka block. And we can see the Russians trying to reposition their squad, and it appears that they're coming under fire right now, and it looks like they may be taking some losses.
Damn.
I don't know how many of them they actually got in the end. We can't really confirm whether anyone fell because the camera was shaking so much, but it's fairly interesting to see what the combat's looking like. I also saw someone ask Matthew in the live chat, no return fire? Like, you know, trying to go with that rule I usually give about the Russians, if there is no return fire, it's a fake video. Well, I would say there's probably no return fire, considering you're seeing the entire enemy squad running left to right in front of the cameraman, trying to get into another building. So that's probably why we're not seeing any return fire. But I don't know everything. Maybe there's like an omnipotent being out there with an AK that could shoot back at the Ukrainians. So with that, we're now moving on into the next clip of news from the Solidar area, where we also saw Russian forces being hit again, this time by none other than Medyar Igor. And so here's the clip.
Як чуєчка якась, він
We see the
постяв,
Russians down there in their dugout
прямо тут в окопі і пішов. Пуф!
and getting hit with a little poof.
Капець, як символічно.
And I see another one
Да.
flying around.
Мисливець.
Actually, that's an eagle.
Прямо над окопами хробаків. Рівно за пару секунд до приходу Мольфара.
We see the Russians still hanging out down there. We now see one of them leaving for a smoke break,
Бадабу!
and the other guy got hit.
Добре. Надійно. Чадить.
I think that may have actually been a vulture and has now gotten itself a nice hot meal.
Очами пілота Мольфара.
You now see it coming in and
Баба!
hitting that spot.
І ще раз.
Now see another clip. I think this may be a second drone hitting the same position. No, same drone, same angle. We now see it from another camera angle, it appears.
За 2 хвилини. Якраз підтягнувся той, що пішов.
We see one guy laying down, going for a nap.
красунчик, прямо ліг.
You see one guy standing up, and he looks like he's trying to fire at someone.
Стріляє один
And
із
this guy
других,
now laying down, he's
але
also
це навряд
firing
чи
into the air.
допоможе. Баба!
And they got hit.
Ай,
Ooh.
Джага-джага!
Jaga
Це
jaga!
нормально.
Dang,
давно.
Jaga Jaga is right.
Дивимося
Two more
ще
ready to
раз.
eat hot
Після
meals.
роздимлення. От скажіть мені, на що розраховує то мавпеня, котре валив
We now see an
дрон
instant
Мольфар,
replay.
котрий летить в нього на швидкості 120 бабав кілометрів. Ай, добре. Потішили хлопчики сьогодні. Накидали трохи.
When you see the smoke coming out of the pressure cooker as Colonel Sanders now introduces his brand new $5 Russian fill-up mill.
Такий, уф. Плоть горить підерська, хробача.
Mind the
То
buckshot.
можна дивитися багаторазово.
Another instant replay.
Падабум.
Wow, they're just blown away by this one for a third replay.
Як то бачив на власні
No pun
очі.
intended.
Пілот
Allegedly.
FPV дрона Мольфар. Кліма і команда.
Or speechless.
Давай вже треба
Yeah, I was thinking that. I was
подивитися
like, he's not
на
saying
дохляків.
anything. I was like, that's weird.
Бляха-муха, роздимілося.
We now see the smoke clearing away And we're not really seeing a lot of the Russians. We do see a microwave, however, right
Там
there.
бліндаж, це той лежав. О, з бліндажа виліз над тілом.
Oh, wait, we can see one now. It may have been the guy laying down. It looks like he's gotten up now.
Гандошиним. Того не видно, той тут знизу упав, блін. А це якраз ж поперек лежав.
And what's that white box on the ground? Is that a
Просто
microwave?
дихання йому робив.
Yes, I actually said that earlier. That's like a microwave or something.
I was just joking, by the way. It looks like something else, like a cooler.
Cooler, 2 weeks.
Ну, так собі видно.
And we see that Madyar is surprised that the man is walking around.
О, видно, що він там порається. Коло тушки.
He's just kind of sitting there. He's pondering things.
Ось вона тушка. Димиться. Це щось коло нього порається, але то вже подихати.
We now see the guy holding his hand to his face for a minute. We don't really know what that's for.
Ну, то, коротше, з нього дим ще 20 хвилин.
Unless your imaginations come up with whatever you want.
Очима пілота.
We're now seeing another one come in. I'm not sure if this is a replay of the clip again.
І
No, it's different.
баба!
It's different. It's a different angle. So that appears to be a new one.
Оповільно.
And now we're getting a replay of it again.
Бада-бум!
Baba.
Do they fly these
Actually,
particular
like,
drones with FPV, or do they fly it with like the controller like normal?
I think they fly it with an FPV.
Добре.
Those are some damn good FPV pilots.
Yeah, they are. I mean, they're really good.
Використовуються бойові частини на Мольфарі.
And we're getting a replay of it again.
Випущені виробництва «Маяк», підприємство «Маяк», ініційовані до вибуху відомим же вам паном Шаманом 63-ї бригади. Очі та жало.
I guess you could say, Matthew, after that drone exploded in that guy's face, I guess he'll have a
That's
poker
sweet.
face.
Oh, I mean, you could say that.
Is he happy? Is he sad? I don't know. Bleh, he just has the same expression. Faceless. But with that, we're now moving on from that little clip in the area of Soledar, and we're now going to be moving on into the center of Bakhmut, where we've gotten even more news. Once again, the front line's been stagnant in both the northern flank and the center. The southern flank is the only area that's seen a Russian movement today. In Peterodny, we saw more captured Russian soldiers, and we can see that it was a slightly larger amount. And we heard the NFL music playing. Oh, and we can see there's about 4.
That's sacrilege. Don't make fun of that.
So we can see about 4 Russian soldiers captured. And with that, that's the end of the clip. And it looks like they were actually captured after a failed assault on their trench line, and they were the only ones to have made it there alive. And then they surrendered. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on from this little clip and on into our next one from Bakhmut, where we also saw a Russian Su-25 got shot down, and the pilot appears to have maybe ejected, but we can't really tell. Let's take a look at this video and see.
Бля, вроде самолет наш.
Ниже. А ну наведи.
We're looking for the parachute.
Куда дивитися, пацани?
Блять, я його ще так. Ось сюди провода, блядь, хмарки не кінчаються, поняв? Диви, де хмара.
I'm not seeing one.
Диви.
Oh.
Бачу, сука,
Диви,
бля.
сука.
That's interesting. The chute looks like it might be tangled.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Блять, парашутист
This is
падає.
falling fairly quickly. That's not falling slowly at all. That is a really quick fall, and that may mean that while he ejected, the chute didn't deploy, and so now he's just got to take the long ride down. So with that, we're now going to be moving on from that clip, but it's good to know that another Russian Su-25 was shot down, and you would think, and I know someone's about to go, oh, that's not funny, the Ukrainians just killed a Russian pilot. Well, maybe the Russians should have packed the parachute better, so that way if he ejected, it would have actually worked. That's not my problem. That's a Russian problem. We're now going to be moving on from that clip and on into the one further south in the Opitny area, where we saw a Ukrainian drone once again dropping nades on the Russians. Ooh.
That's highly
Oh,
copyrighted.
that's highly copyrighted. That's in the area of the papacy, pretty much, in terms of copyright levels. Only the Pope can use that stuff. You see the drone dropping its bomblet. You see the bomblet exploding right on a Russian. He falls over. and he decides that aerobics are now in his future. He begins a new exercise class in the middle of Ukraine, but unfortunately, the only people who will be filming this are the Ukrainians. It appears that his aerobics class failed as soon as it began. And that's the end of the clip, but it's interesting to see they're once again getting more Russians. We're now moving on into our last clip from the center of the Bakhmut line, where we got an update from Bakhmut, from the man of Bakhmut. We are still trying to find the updates from the witch for all of you, I guess you could say, thirsty people out there, and I assure you we will eventually find one. But until then, here's the man of Bakhmut.
Вітання, Україна. Друзі, на жаль, вітання не з вулиць Бахмута, але то причини, які від мене абсолютно не залежать. Маю надію, що скоро повернемося і ви знову будете бачити репортажі з різних місць Бахмуту. І так і буде. Ворожим АЙПСО не будемо давати жодного шансу. Та ми їм і так не даємо. Те, що ми робимо правильно, це говорить про те, що мої всі аккаунти поблокували, мільйони ботів, там коменти, але це мене ще раз стверджує на тому шляху, що робити цю роботу також комусь потрібно, і це все правильно. Друзі, по оперативній ситуації, район Авдіївки, там між Авдіївкою і Пески із району Водяного выскакивают десантные штурмовые подразделения, навалюються на наші опорники, получають порило, палиться бронетехніка, вони дохнуть, відскакують. Пересапнули, знову гарматне м'ясо женуть. І так постійно, по декілька разів. Позиції тримаються, там все добре. Район між Солідаром і Бахмутом, там також кинули дуже багато десантних частей, остатків Вагнера, піхотних, мотопіхотних підрозділень і іншої наволочі. Штурми постійні, днівні, ночні, але ситуація контрольована. Ворог несе там на тому напрямку колосальні втрати, за це зараз не говориться і говорити його не треба. Хто там зараз на яких позиціях, теж говорити не будемо. Я вам скажу так, лінію тримаються, десь якісь там окопчики чи вопчик із рук в руки перейшов, це війна, так буває. Саме місто Бахмут. Бахмут під контролем нашим повним. Десь із району Опитного Іванграда намагаються лізти, зверху пролізти. Штурми відбуваються з тяжкими втратами для рашофашистів. Місто під повним контролем. Ситуація по всій конгломерації, вона абсолютно непроста. Це не так, як я вам розказую в Тік-Токі і ви слухаєте. Але повірте, там все, що потрібно, робиться. Від Бахмута до Кліщіївки і туди далі до району Ступочки, Часового Яра, там смістився трошки акцент. Намагається вилізти на трасу, перерізати. Але там стоять козаки, які достойно дають по зубам. Ситуація теж абсолютно непроста, але там тісний тандем всіх родів військ працює і маю надію, що будемо скоро чекати звідти гарних новин. Друзі, загальна ситуація, яка істерію АЙПСО розганяють про сумасшедші наступи з усіх сторон. Це для того, щоб деморалізувати, залякати наше населення і паралельно застосовуючи ракетних ударів по наших мирних містах, по інфраструктурі. Ворог хоче досягти психологічної мети. Не то, що завоювати Україну, він не то, що в страшному сні цього ніколи не зробить, а деморалізувати населення, наше вище керівництво, і для того, щоб ми сіли за стіл переговорів, як-то где-то посередині договарюватися. Але, ніхто ні з ким вже договарюватися не буде, тварі, Все, за те, що ви поруйнували, понівечили наші міста, повбивали наших і побратимів, і українців, і дітей, і жінок, і старих, вже варіантів ніяких немає. Ви, тварі, ще не представляєте, що вас чекає. Ще ми дочекаємося нарешті. Нам не сильно виходить отримати в повному об'ємі західну допомогу, самі розумієте чому. І це не називається словом корупція, корупційний скандал, там корні глибше. Це для баранів корупція. На самом деле це там підрив обороноздатності. І це робиться, західні ж партнери, але, слава Богу, І вони ж теж роблять аналітику, дивляться, які тварі туди були внедрені, в які структури і для чого вони роблять. Але менше з тим, не буду ту політику лізти, бо заблокують крайній цей аккаунт, взагалі нічого не буде виходити. Скажу коротко так.
Wise man.
Ситуація тяжка, але нічого страшного в тому немає. На Бахмутській конгломерації там і добровольчі підрозділи, батальйон Кавказ, біля нас там гарні козаки, Мансур, вітання, білоруські підрозділи, штурмовий полк зайшов сильний, окрема тяжка бригада зайшла, Нацгвардія стоїть, багато там козаків, дуже сильних, потужних, всіх, вибачайте, що не перерахую. Хлопці на місцях знають свою задачу і роблять все для того, щоб перемолоти цю орду, біомасу, без мозгов і без всього. Тому не хвилюйтеся, все буде Україна, тримайте стрій, вірте в ЗСУ, слава нації та смерть ворогам.
And so with that scene in the clip, there you have it, an update from Bakhmut, and it appears that the man of Bakhmut might not be able to give the updates much longer on the Bakhmut situation, because it appears that him and his unit may be being moved to a different position in the front. And so with that, we're now moving out of the center of the front line, and once again, Slava Natsia, I actually got a clarification on this from PsyOps. Slava Natsia is a glory to the nation. There is actually one that sounds very similar. It's something like Slava Natsistia or something like that. That does mean glory to, you know, the other people. But he's saying Natsia. So with that, we are going to be moving on into the Klishkivka area and the southern front. Once again, while it's having some movements, it has the least amount of news. And we saw a Russian hiding in the trash down here, but it doesn't appear to have done him well. Here we go with a sick intro. Actually has a Mandalorian helmet. Interesting. Oh, and it's Mario. Now, Nintendo will come and actually have us assassinated, so we're going to have that muted. But we can see the Russian down there hiding in the trash. The bomblet's on its way. He decides that's no longer good to be down there. It explodes, and he falls to the ground. And so with that is the end of the clip. But it looks like the guy didn't get the good end of the bomblet, if there is one. We're now going to be moving out of the Bakhmut area and the battle in general, because beyond that, there's been a small amount of ground made, and the Russians have once again lost hundreds for really nothing. We're now moving on down into the Donetsk region, where we saw around Troitsky today, a catastrophic cook-off occurred with a Russian vehicle.
Was lost.
All right, we're muting that.
And he had to like clear his throat before he started laying down that track.
And we can see it's a T-80B VM. How nice. And we can see the drone getting right up above it. The tank doesn't know they're there. The drone's now backing up with the tank. The video is either lagging. Nope, the video is just... Wait a minute. Let me skip forward a little bit. The tank fired right there. The drone's still following it. Drops a bomblet. It explodes right on the barrel. What a shot! Let's watch that again.
Jeez.
And it looks like it actually caused a little bit of damage. And now we can see them dropping grenades down the T-80 BVs, causing an ammo fire. We can also see that the breach is still open because some of the fire is escaping out of the barrel. And now we can see a side angle of the T-80BV being caught on fire. Ammunition fire is starting to cook inside of it. And we can see that it's starting to spread fairly quickly. And that's the end of the clip, but that was an impressive shot that landed right on the barrel, and another great one that went right down the hatch and into the ammo, causing the tank to catch on fire, and it's another $3.5 million tank that the Russians have lost. We're now going to be moving on from the area of Troitsky and further on down to Marinka, where we got some pictures of the soldiers that are fighting in this area today. The 79th Air Assault Brigade is down here, and we see one of them has a British patch. He burned my patch, bro. Moving on to the next picture, we can see one of them firing an RPG-7 in the snow. We can see another picture of one of them standing very calmly, with a very calm expression in the snow. And in the last picture, we can see a couple of them standing around and having a small chit-chat in the snow. Very nice to see, and it's good to know that the fighters down there are continuing on the battle and holding the ground as best they can. They've been holding Marinka for 12 months, ever since the very beginning of the war, and even long before that, all the way back to 2014, Marinka has been held, and you gotta give them a lot of credit, because that is a long time to hold a single area like that, and they're still doing it. We're now moving on back down to the area of Volodar, where we have gotten a little bit more news today, where more POWs have been captured, and this time in a fairly large number, 4 of them. Oh, we're muting that. When you see right here, the typical peasant phenotype. This man, if you had taken him from the 1400s, would be indistinguishable from anyone who was tilling the land back then for the Russian lords who controlled Muscovy and Nizhny Novgorod. Fairly interesting. Also, this guy kind of looks like a guy on YouTube. I forgot his name, but he's some guy who goes around and he does weird stuff. But I can't remember his name.
That's a lot of people on YouTube. That really doesn't narrow it down very much.
That's pretty much everyone on YouTube eventually. Like, it seems as though, Matthew, in my opinion, just to have a quick little aside here, either you enter YouTube as an incredibly weird weirdo, or you seem normal, and then people find out that you're either like a groomer or you beat like your wife or something. It's always something like that. But anyways, you can see
where do we fall in that category?
We don't fall in any of those, and I don't think we ever will. Hopefully, we won't. But we can
hopefully
see
not.
Hopefully, allegedly. But you see another one back here in a blue blanket, and another one in a checkered blanket. And then we can see one guy just Slav squatting here in the corner. But all 4 of them have been captured and are going to be sent to the prisoner of war exchange. We're now moving on from this clip and on into our next one, further down the line and out of the southern front, actually not out of the southern front, in the area of Huilopol, where we saw the Ukrainians having to take cover from incendiaries that were launched right above them. And so here's the clip. When you hear the incendiaries exploding right above him, when you see the streaks of them falling down right on top of him, and he takes cover inside of a covered part of the trench, the incendiary starts smoking on the ground right beside him. Oh, you see the fire it's created is burning quite brightly, and it's very difficult to put out. This kind of stuff pretty much keeps burning even underwater. But with that, that's the end of the video, and you can see right there, once again, the Russians are using incendiaries to try and burn Ukrainian soldiers alive. Also, Matthew, interestingly enough, I have to say this beforehand, allegedly, Ash Smith said that there was a certain guy that I'm not really a big fan of anymore who ended up being a person who violates women, and supposedly, allegedly, that is the reason why he was deported from Russia and wasn't allowed to return.
Allegedly on that one, but I have heard that too, by the way.
Allegedly. Because, you know, one thing he said in his video, you come to the country, you try and help it out, and they treat you like this. And then if you find out that, it's like, well, you know, it's like, that doesn't really sound like you may have been helping, allegedly helping them out. But with that, we're now going to be moving on from this clip from the Zaporizhia area. Once again, this front line is largely inactive. And we're now moving over to Inohordar, where we saw that a collaborator's car may have exploded today. And it looks like the partisans took a page out of another book from another era of history. We can see the car over there on fire and burning prolifically. And that thing's roasting. Quite nicely, I must say, to say the least.
I like how that fella's just like moping by it, like, no big deal.
He's like, it's an odd day today. But with that, that's the end of the clip, and it's good to know that another collaborator has been had. We're now moving on from the Inohordar area and further down the Dnipro Reservoir and all the way down to the area around Oleski Sands, where we saw a second rare Tor. There's only 12 of these in the entirety of the Russian Federation. One was destroyed yesterday, a second one has been destroyed today, and here's the clip of it. We can see it right there. We can see the little Tor system on the back churning around on its radar, trying to pick up air targets, but it doesn't appear that this thing is doing a good enough job. Here in a second, we'll see it explode. There we go. We now see it boiling, toasting, and roasting.
For some reason, when I saw this, I thought, "Is this Afghanistan or something?" It didn't look like Ukraine.
The clashing of the swords, the swing of the knife. We see the Ukrainians sitting around the truck that they most likely launched the attack from, and the pillar of smoke coming from the distance from that Tor. Another one of the only 12 destroyed, and now the Russians are down to 10 of these things, 2 lost over 2 days. We're now moving out of that little clip of news, and we're now moving all the way up to Kyiv to cover the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky here on day 346 of the war in Ukraine. And so without further ado, here is the address from President Volodymyr Zelensky. Let me make sure to get everything ready, and here we go.
Бажаю здоров'я, шановні українці. Сьогодні відбувся черговий саміт Україна-Європейський Союз. Відбувся у Києві, у нашій столиці. Ми маємо доволі конкретні домовленості з нашими партнерами про те, як Україна стане ще ближчою з Європейським Союзом. Цей ранок в Україні, як і багато інших, почався з повітряної тривоги. Цей день, як і багато інших, минув у надзвичайно жорстоких боях на фронті. Але все одно цим вечором можна сказати, що Україна йде до своєї мети. Ми зберегли українську свободу, ми захищаємо цінності України. І ми досягнемо цілей нашої держави, європейських цілей нашої держави. Сьогодні дуже відчувалась впевненість у цьому під час саміту. Ми говорили і говоримо вже як учасники європейської спільноти. І працюємо, щоб зафіксувати це де-юре. Про що конкретно ми домовились сьогодні? Є розуміння, що почати переговори про членство України в ЄС можна цього року. Є розуміння партнерами також і того, що цього року маємо, як і той рік, незмінно посилювати оборонну підтримку нашої держави і тиск на Росію. Зокрема, санкційний тиск. Ми говорили сьогодні про 10-й санкційний пакет Євросоюзу, який зараз готується. Є наші пропозиції щодо цього пакету. Сьогодні ми їх озвучили партнерам. Обговорили зміни в інституціях нашої держави, які ми здійснюємо і які ще готуємось здійснити. Обговорили фінансову співпрацю. Звичайно, обговорили відновлення інфраструктури і, в першу чергу, соціальної та енергетичної. Також реалізацію нашого плану Fast Recovery Plan. Те, що треба відновлювати вже зараз. Я дякую Єврокомісії за рішення про $1 мільярд, який буде спрямований саме на Fast Recovery. Готуємо більшу інтеграцію України до внутрішнього ринку ЄС. Це більші доходи українських компаній, більше виробництво та робочі місця в нашій країні. Це доходи державного і місцевих бюджетів. Тобто це те, що робить Україну реально міцніше. І для мене дуже важливо, що є конкретика і по таких напрямках, як, наприклад, заміна системи дитячих інтернатів в нашій країні іншою системою, більш цивілізованою та дружньою для дітей, які, на жаль, не мають батьківського піклування. У дітей має бути родина, виховання дітей в дитячих будинках сімейного типу. Це точно значно краще, ніж стара система інтернатів. Ми зробимо цю реформу разом з Євросоюзом. Буде створений відповідний офіс, який буде відповідати за цю реформу. І вже окреслені попередні домовленості щодо цієї реформи. Я вже звітував про різні домовленості щодо нашої формули миру. Це конкретні 10 пунктів, реалізація яких точно дозволить відновити нашу територіальну цілісність і безпеку не лише України, а усієї Європи та міжнародного правопорядку. Тобто відновити все те, що руйнує агресія Росії. Сьогодні ЄС офіційно підтримав українську формулу миру. Це зафіксовано у підсумковій заяві саміту. І ми домовились про конкретну допомогу з боку єС в реалізації нашої формули миру. Це вагомий дипломатичний здобуток. І ми робимо все, щоб агресія Росії стала самовбивчою для неї. Ситуація на фронті залишається дуже тяжкою, особливо на Донецькому напрямку. Я дякую усім нашим воїнам, які витримують жорсткий тиск окупанта, які чітко і повно виконують завдання по захисту наших позицій. І які навіть у таких тяжких умовах, які на передовій зараз дають Україні хороші новини. Зокрема, дякую 10-й гірській штурмовій бригаді за успішні контрнаступальні дії на Донеччині. Дякую бійцям 54-ї окремої механізованої бригади за хоробрість і справжню українську стійкість в боях за Донбас. 81-ша окрема аеромобільна бригада та 66-та окрема механізована бригада. Я дякую вам, хлопці, за захист Луганщини та сталеву міцність. І окремо хочу відзначити наших нацгвардійців, 3-ю бригаду оперативного призначення Нацгвардії, хлопців, які успішно мінусують ворожу авіацію на Донеччині. Дякую вам. Дякую усім, хто воює за Україну. Дякую кожному і кожній, хто допомагає нам захищатись від окупанта. Дякую усім, хто посилює наші міжнародні позиції і допомагає отримувати зброю для України. Сьогодні ж говорив у Києві з міністром оборони Польщі. Він разом з іншими партнерами та міністром оборони України взяли участь вже у 3-й зустрічі держав-учасниць нашої танкової коаліції. Ми робимо все для якнайшвидшого отримання нашими воїнами сучасних танків. І сьогодні ж Сполучені Штати Америки оголосили про черговий великий пакет оборонної підтримки для нашої держави. Я дякую президенту Байдену, усім друзям свободи в Конгресі і кожному американцю за цю відчутну підтримку. Тепер разом маємо працювати над максимально швидким постачанням цієї допомоги в Україну. І ще одне. Є чергові санкційні рішення Ради національної безпеки і оборони нашої держави щодо тих, хто працює на російську агресію. Відповідні укази про введення в дію рішень РНБО вже підготовлені. І окремо дякую співробітникам СБУ, ДБР, Національної поліції, Офісу Генпрокурора за нові кроки по відновленню справедливості після дій від тих, хто не зрозумів, що на державних посадах працювати треба лише на інтереси держави. Слава Україні!
And so with that was the end of the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky here on day 346 of the war in Ukraine. And of course, that wraps up our news summary for the night. And we're about to be moving into our question segment, addressing all of the polls that have been run in between the last one and this one, and also answering all of the live chats that we can. Just in case if there are any new viewers here tonight, because there are always a decent amount of them, here's how our question segment works. If you want to support this channel, you can. And if you do, your question will be addressed first. But that does not mean that you have to send in a super chat to have your question answered. You can get them answered absolutely free. We make that a point to go out of our way to make sure to answer as many live chats as we can every single night. But we always have to make sure to get to the super chats first, because through their support, they're able to keep the channel running. And if you want to support, you have an option of how much you find this channel to be worth. The super chat option allows you to put anything you want into it. So just letting y'all know, because I think one person say that at the beginning of the stream. It seems that they may have been new, and I just want you to know that, because I understand that coming in here, it looks like you always have to support to get a question answered. But if you wait until the very end of the stream, you will see that we answer as many live chats as we can. In fact, I think it was like 3 nights ago, we got to all of the live chats. We ran out of them and into the stream like 7 minutes early or so. And so with that, I was waiting for Matthew's confirmation there. And so with that, we are now moving on into our polls, and then we'll be getting on into the questions. So with that, what do we got, Matthew?
All right. And we have 4 more polls to address, and we have some pretty interesting questions and answers here. So the very first one that we're going to cover is the one that's currently running. It says, as of today, do you have any indication that Russia will do, quote unquote, maximum escalation on February 24th? And this question was asked, I think, 2 or 3 days ago, and this is kind of just getting everybody's feelings once again on the matter. So it looks like 30% said, yes, I think it is going to happen, meaning something's going to happen on the 24th militarily. 15% said unsure. 29% said, I have a bad feeling, but I'm still unsure. And 26% said, no, I still think it's nothing. Now, I have to say, from all the different sources, including the Ukrainian government, we've heard from Starsky, and just generally, it seems like folks expect something to happen on the 24th, but it's hard to tell what. Putin, of course, is running his mouth at a very high rate, like usual, saying that he's going to do extreme things. Although we never can take him at his word because he lies like a dog. So I'm going to say unsure still, but I have a slightly bad feeling about it. But Enforcer, what say you?
I heard something new today, where it's not a new front being created in the north and the east. The north and the northeast. It's actually being added forces onto the southern areas and also the eastern areas of the front line. That still does not change my opinion, because that's not accounting for troop density. You can only have so many troops in a given area before you start to overcrowd it and people get killed unnecessarily. And if the Russians do that, that's not going to help them out with gaining ground or pushing the Ukrainians back. That's just going to start whittling down their forces quicker than before. So I have a feeling that even if it is happening in South, it's not going to create that much of a change. We haven't even seen that much of a change when Russia took all 220,000 of their guys, and instead of spreading them out all the way from Kyiv in a circle down to Kherson, they took half of the line, retreated out of it, and then moved everyone down here into the south and the east, and we still didn't see any progress. So even if they add an additional 300,000 guys, it's not going to be making much of a change. But in my opinion, I still don't think it's going to happen, because they still don't have the supplies to field these guys. They don't have enough equipment or vehicles to support them with, and also it just all seems highly unlikely still. So with that, I hope that addresses that poll fairly well in my opinion. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and while I close out that poll, if the YouTube studio would quit lagging, there we go. All right, it decided to cooperate. So the very first poll that I put up says, is the treatment that Russian soldiers are giving Ukrainian civilians unprecedented in war? It looks like 51% said no, it certainly happened before. 44% said yes, it's unprecedented barbarism. And 5% said unsure. And I'm definitely going to go with no. This has definitely happened before. There's several examples of that, and I'm sure the Enforcer will probably mention them. But I'm a solid no on that one. But Enforcer, what say you?
There have been a lot of worse instances that have happened before. In a modern context, this is about as bad as it's gotten. In a historical context, sometimes this doesn't even touch or pale in comparison to what we've seen before. In the Second World War, a lot of towns in Belarus and also Ukraine would disappear off the map because every single person living within that town would be slaughtered by the Germans. In the First World War, it was actually quite uncommon to get civilian casualties or casualties of citizens within no man's land, because usually they fled before that happened. Another thing, I'm trying to think back in the day, and I'm talking about way back in the day, back in the 1400s, it was fairly common that whenever a siege would occur and a siege would be won on a city, that they would kill, I can't say the R word, but they would grape, I guess that's the best way to say that and get past the censors. They would grape anyone they could within the town, and they would do all kinds of atrocities, and that was just considered the norm. So what we're seeing right now is definitely not as bad as it can get, but in a modern context, this is heinous. You know, we're not going off of a standard from the 1400s, the 1700s, or the 1940s. We're going off of a standard set by the present day, the modern era, and going off of that precedent, this is absolutely atrocious what the Russians are doing to people, and it's a crime against humanity. I would hate to think that that people out there would try and excuse the Russians' actions by going off of the actions of people in the 1400s, because we don't live in the 1400s anymore, and the idea of society and how people should be treated at the bare minimum has come a long way since then. And so with that, I hope that does address that poll fairly well. It isn't as bad as it has been, but it is incredibly bad for the modern age. And so with that, we are on to the next one. I hope that answers that fairly well.
All right, and we have 2 more polls to go. And the next one says, do you think Putin is psychologically the same person as he was at the start of the war? 42% said no, he's become completely unhinged. 15% said somewhat in certain ways. 7% said unsure. And 35% said yes, he still has the same mindset. And on this one, I'm going to go with the 15% that said he's changed in certain ways. He's definitely become more paranoid, but he still has the very calculating and cold, ruthless mindset he started with. I think he was just suppressing it for many years, trying to play a part, and he's always had this underneath. I think that's very obvious. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would agree with that completely. He's always had this under him. He's just trying to hide it because he's always had this weird, like, super macho man thing going. And usually, if you go super macho, there's something lurking underneath. You're like some kind of a sociopath or a psychopath. And I'm not saying that you can't be strong or macho, but if you try and be like Putin's super macho, there's something weird going on there, and that's usually something that a lot of dictators do, like Kim Jong-un. They try and look as tough as they can at all times. They never sit there and try and look like they're personable or anything. You know, like even with how Putin walks, you know, the gun walker gait where he keeps one hand still. Like all that stuff. Yeah, all that stuff.
I've seen folks like idolize that walk like it's something to be praised, and it's literally just like, I don't even know what to call the walk. It's like, is there even a purpose behind it?
I don't even know. I don't think there is a purpose behind it rather than to make someone think, oh, he's got a gun. But obviously he doesn't have a gun. Well, he may. I don't know. He may be crazy enough to have one. But he's been keeping this under wraps for the whole while, and he's just gotten unhinged now. So I would definitely say that he's always been like this, and we're finally seeing it boil to the surface. But yeah, and I see a lot of people saying what I'm really looking for, short man syndrome. He's got short man syndrome. Also, how tall is Putin? How tall is Putin? 5'6". A manlet.
Dang.
This man is a manlet.
152 pounds? Dang, he weighs actually quite a bit less than me, and that's shocking.
Let's see. Let's see him. Okay, so here's a size scale. He's just a little taller than Angela Merkel. Man,
Dang.
I didn't
We could
realize-
take him.
Yeah, I could take that guy on. I mean, you see, I'm 6'2", so I'm at the very far end of this graph here. I can take him on. I could one. Let's see here. Let's look at this graph. Everyone on Earth is taller than him. Shinzo Abe, rest in peace. Cameron, Obama. I don't even know who that guy is. But they could all take him. I could take the guy. This guy's tiny. I never realized how small he was. Also, why the hell does this look like a Pokemon setup here, like they're versing them against each other?
Yeah, like it's that boxing video game.
Oh, and he's 68 years old?
I will have to say this: he doesn't look 68.
No, he doesn't look 68. I think being an absolute hellspawn makes you look a little younger. And also, man, dang, he is tiny. Dude, that guy is small.
Although I think the Orange Man was pretty tall. I think he's 6'1".
Yeah, he's 6'1", 6'2", but still, he is tiny. I mean, that's how big he would look standing beside me.
Yeah, that's true.
That's actually...
And also, let's see, I saw Hokey Redneck say, what is Matt? I'm 6'1", and Enforcer 6'2".
Yeah, I'm just a little taller. It's really like 3/4 of an inch. It isn't an exact inch. It's fairly close, but I'm 6'2", he's 6'1". So with that, I hope we answered that fairly well, because he does have short man syndrome, and he's now letting it all out to the surface, and he's showing how crazy he really is. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the final poll says, will Putin's new propaganda strategy be successful? In reference to invoking the Soviet hardships, the Battle of Stalingrad, etc. It looks like 54% said it will only work on a few Russians. 20% said no, it won't change any minds in Russia at all. 9% said unsure, and 18% said yes, it will likely stir up support. And on this one, I'm going to go with the 54%. I think it's only going to work on the older Russians that probably remember that a little bit more closely. I don't think it's going to work on the younger Russians. So ultimately probably unsuccessful, but it will stir up some support. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to agree. It's probably going to stir up a very small amount of support, but it will work marginally. And so with that, I hope we addressed that poll fairly well. And we are now on into the questions themselves.
All right. And moving into our Super Chat questions once again, up first, we have a very generous $50 donation from Enforcer for President, who does not leave a comment. But as always, Enforcer for President, who changed their username to say that just for us. It's still very cool to see. Thank you very much once again for that support. And Enforcer, take it away.
And I got to thank you, Enforcer for President, for the support and helping this channel keep on running, because it's viewers like you that get me hyped up to do this, because I love the enthusiasm, and I love that you want me for president, and hopefully I'll be a good one in 2040. And also another thing, I think it's just really cool that you've helped us out so much. You didn't even leave a comment, not a single comment, but you did help us to keep this thing running, and so I got to thank you so much once again. Thank you for helping us to keep the lights on, helping the wheels to keep turning back here, because none of y'all have to. None of y'all have to support us, yet y'all do. And I find that to be a high honor, and also I think it is a great praise to the level of our work and how much y'all find of it to be of value to actually help us to keep it going. But still, thank you so much once again. I hope we addressed that fairly well. And in honor of that, Matthew, could we grab a live chat? I know you didn't ask for one, but I think we should get one.
And yes, we can. And this one is going to go to L. Colston, who says, if Belarus does step in, does that in any way trigger response from NATO?
If who stands in?
If Belarus does step in.
No, it would not trigger a response from NATO. It still doesn't invoke Article 4 or Article 5 or cross any of the red lines that we've made. So it wouldn't actually change anything rather than Belarus joining the war. So with that, I hope that answers that question fairly well. And we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $50 super chat from S. Lang, who says, can you guys please give a shout out to Ukraine TBIC? He is a volunteer combat medic, just an amazing person.
Hell no, I'm just kidding. We're going to go pull him up real quick. We've actually plugged him before. And let me go find him real quick. Green. EBIC. He's been growing, actually. He's been growing. The flashback has grown, too, a decent amount. He's still out there. He's still doing his little clips and videos. And he is a great channel. We've shown him on here before. We actually showed his skincare routine in Bakhmut before. And he's a really cool guy. He's been out there helping out a great deal. I believe he's a volunteer medic. And he is still working incredibly hard up till the present day. And so, of course, make sure to go over to Ukraine TBIC. Make sure to comment on his videos and tell him the Lee Spring Army sent y'all. And also tell him, and also make sure to subscribe to him. He's actually come over here and watched a couple of our videos, and that's pretty cool. And also, he's a pretty cool guy. And so with that, I hope we addressed that fairly well. And I thank you so much once again for the support and giving a shout out to a great Ukraine War YouTube channel. And to show y'all a couple of others that I highly recommend since we have the moment, the Flashback is a great one. We actually plugged him, and his channel, along with the plug from Operator Starsky, has absolutely blown up. It went from, I believe, around 4,000 subscribers when we first saw him to now he's up to around 49,000 subscribers.
Jeez,
so he's
dang, he has grown a
there.
ton from the last time you've shown him.
Yeah, and I think that's really cool. Actually, here's how quickly he's grown. If we go through his community posts, we can find the one where he thanked us and Starsky for getting him to 20,000. Let's see here. Wow, he posts a lot of community posts. I didn't realize how many he posted. But let me get on down. Let me get on down. Oh, look, Father Frost. It's that's not Father Frost. That's someone else. But let's see here. Man, he's got a load of good pictures. High quality images. I'll tell you that. I'll tell you that much at least. Water never changes. I have a feeling it couldn't have been this far back. But maybe it was?
This guy stays in touch with the audience very closely. These are a lot of posts.
Yeah, he's posting.
Is that Operator Starsky in that one?
Yeah, he actually has talked and interviewed Operator Starsky before.
Oh.
But dang, man, I cannot find where we plucked him. It was not that long ago. It's not that long ago at all. It was probably like a month or two ago, but I can't find it. He was like, wow, 20,000 followers. Thanks, everyone. And I can't find it. I'm trying to show this to get the point across about how quickly he's grown. Let's see what's on the front lines by the Christmas cruise. Christmas truce in a moment was. Oh, here we go. 2 weeks ago, he said we're at more than 20,000 followers. That was just 2 weeks ago, and he at our channel. That was pretty cool, and I thank him for that. And also, he's a great channel. I left a comment down here. He's also come over here and watched our channel a good bit. He's a great reporting channel, and I highly recommend y'all go over there and watch him. And of course, we have the original G, the one that we got to know first and foremost, Operator Starsky himself. Operator Starsky, pretty cool guy. He runs a great channel. He's still uploading, not as much as he used to, but he's still uploading as much as he can. And we can see that the last one he uploaded was building the kit aircraft. All in all, great videos, and I think that he's really good. Another channel that's really good is also CivDiv. We showed some of his videos on here before. He has 504,000 subscribers, so I don't really think he needs to plug. Much like Operator Starsky, they're way bigger than us, but still a really good channel. And another one that's actually really, really good is Ukraine Matters. Ukraine Matters, we've talked to him a pretty good bit behind the scenes, and he's got about 57,000 subscribers, and he's really cool too. We actually got plans with him in the future. We got a plan with pretty much everyone in the future, except for one. Call him out. Call him out. But still, really cool channels, and I'd highly recommend that y'all subscribe to all of these and let them know the Lee Spring Army sent y'all. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well, and thank you for helping us to keep this channel running so that way we can keep reporting this news and also plug other channels and also run our fundraisers. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next we have a $30 super chat from Red Lamani. And for some reason, Red, YouTube said you were a new viewer, but we know better because you have been here before, so I don't know why it did that, but thank you very much for the support. And Red says, guys, keep it up. What you do is vital for Ukraine. Everyone needs to be aware and need to keep supporting. On a second note, if you're in NYC and want real Italian food, you know who to call.
And also, thank you so much once again for the support, Red. And that does verify. He has thrown in support before. When I saw that, I was like, I don't think that's his first time supporting. Because we've gone to the pizza store in Whitestone, and we've looked at it. So I know
yeah, he's definitely been here before.
Yeah, he's definitely been here before. I don't know why YouTube said that. YouTube's glitching. YouTube be messing. But still, thank you so much for the
tripping.
They tripping, man. They tripping. But I still got to thank you so much for the support, and I hope that we will eventually get up there and have some of that delicious pizza, because I love pizza. It's one of my favorite foods. You know, it's just good. You can get any kind of pizza. It's just good stuff. And so maybe we'll get up there eventually and try out that good pizza. And also, I got to thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. We try our best to keep everything running every single day of the week, 6 days a week, and we thank y'all so much for the support. Of course, the support isn't what keeps the channel running. It's really just our willpower and our promise that we would keep it running, but support does help to ensure that we can survive behind the scenes so that way it can continue to run. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope we addressed that fairly well, and I can't wait to try your pizza sometime in the future. And so with that, we are now on to the next one, and thank you once again for the support and being a Lee Spring Army chef.
Yes, indeed. And up next, we have a $25 super chat from Gary Robbins, who says, if Russian soldiers want to not be returned to Russia, how does that happen? They gotta run, buddy. They gotta run away.
Yeah, they gotta run like hell, man. They want to survive tomorrow. Man, they better start running for them there hills because they ain't gonna be living beyond tomorrow, you know what I mean? So honestly, the truth is the Russians want to survive, they gotta surrender or run. That's their only two options. If they stay on the front lines, they will die. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
You know, really, if you think about it, you really have to, I guess, it's tough to say it because the Russians have done things, but you have to somewhat admire the courage of the Russians that are willing to defect to Ukraine and run away, because I'm sure they've been fed a ton of propaganda about how badly they're going to supposedly be tortured by the Ukrainians, by, you know, the Russian government. So it takes some courage to run off and defect.
I would agree completely. It takes a lot of courage for them to do that because also if they get caught, they could easily get executed by fellow Russians or even worse. You know, I showed you that one video where it ended up being far worse for one of them. But yeah, it takes a lot of courage to do that for sure. And it's not easy for them to do. A lot of people think it's really easy to surrender, but you have people around you in your squad that may kill you if you try and surrender, or something similar. So it's not that easy. You got to give the Russians a lot of credit that do surrender and give up. And so with that, I hope that addresses that fairly well. And also said, someone said, Paul Plonsky said, call them out. Call them out.
Call them out.
And I'll actually say this, reversing back to plugging channels, I really support almost every single YouTube channel out there covering the war in Ukraine, except for one. We had a beef with them before. It was an accidental beef. We went out of our way to clear it up, and then we reached out to them and we tried to let them know about something we were doing in the future as far as fundraising and support, and try and talk to them about it. And then we got blown off 4 times like we were unimportant people. And I'm not trying to say that I wanted to be treated like an important person, but considering that we were trying to find a way to reach out to this person that started talking about supporting Ukraine. And then they blew us off because they didn't want to have anything to do with that, or us for some reason, even though we clearly pushed everything aside and saw that on both ends it was clearly a misunderstanding. That showed me that while it was an understanding the first time, we're not going to make the mistake of sitting there and trying to act nice to that person, because that was just rude and uncalled for. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And up next, we have a $20 super chat from Sean Tiz. And he said earlier, don't read my super chat, guys. Just move on if you want. But we're going to read it anyway, Sean. He says, I, the guy who answers all the question on ChatGPT.
Oh, that's cool. And thank you so much for the support. And also, that is really cool to hear that you do read off... that you do read that stuff off and answer the questions. I don't know where in the world I was going with that, but still... thank you so much once again for the support and also sharing that with us. I don't know why I'm having such a huge brain fart right here, but that's really cool to hear. So we will be making sure to drop by and say hello to you every once in a while. And thank you so much once again for the support and sharing that with us. Also, I would give the name, but if y'all are up to date with channel beef, and how long that's been going on, y'all probably know who it is already. So if you do know who it is, and you want to share it around, I'm not going to stop you this time because it actually is that channel. So with that, we're on to the next one.
Yeah, I've seen his name floating around the chat, and it is who y'all think it is. But up next, we have a $20 super chat from Panama Floyd, who says, Enforcer and Enforcer Matt, in reference to the sniper, I know y'all are Southern boys, but did y'all ever shoot for meat? If I could hit a deer at 150 meters, I might hit something way further out with a military sniper rifle, and maybe not 600 meters. And believe it or not, Panama, we've never gone hunting, even though we live in Alabama.
Also, that is true. Also, Candy Nose Twin Skins, no, it's not him. We're actually doing something with him in the future. So, no, I'm going to tell you that outright. No, it's not him. But, let's see. We've never gone hunting. I have gone rifle shooting, target shooting, and I've been able to consistently hit targets at about 300 meters out with iron sights and have about a 6-inch grouping, or closer to a 4-inch grouping at around 300 yards. Beyond that, however, my accuracy just drops off the face of the earth. It doesn't even get close to being accurate, and I don't even think I really hit the targets at 600 yards, but I'm using nothing but iron sight, so I don't know if that's really good or not, and I'm not really like someone who goes to the range weekly or daily. But yeah, that's something interesting to think about. I wonder if we could hit a target at 600 yards. I would try, but the range nearby that is at 600 yards distance is incredibly strict, and we probably wouldn't even be able to film a video there because they would flip out and freak out. So with that, I thank you so much for support and sharing that with us. And I wonder if it would be the case that if you can hit a deer at 150 yards, you can hit a target at 600. And so
you remember when I went to that range you're talking about and violated almost every safety rule they had?
Yes, I remember that.
That was hilarious. It was nothing that endangered anyone, but it was just like little minor violations. It's an extremely strict range. That's somewhat of a good thing and a bad thing. I've never been to a range that's this strict. So I violated a couple of their rules quite blatantly, but was still safe while I did it. But it was hilarious.
Also, Bobo Azula asked, why doesn't the Enforcer use a scope? I don't use a scope because a lot of my guns are vintage. I shoot 1903s, Krag Jorgensens, and I believe I had at a time a Remington 700 with a scope on it, but I never shot the Remington 700. I bought it, and then I sold it a little while later. It just never shot it, and I sold it because I was never going to shoot it. But I usually shoot very old guns that are in original condition out of a military stockyard or something similar. And I usually don't want to mess them up by drilling holes into their stocks to equip scopes onto them, so I just shoot them as iron sights to preserve their original quality. I don't want to be that guy who bubbas up my 1903 and sporterizes it or something, because I hate that. I hate it so much. Like, all the sporterized Krags, wait, hang on, sporterized. Sporter rifle. Here we go. Oh my god, why? Why did they do this to him? They butchered this beauty of a rifle. I mean, the Krag isn't the best rifle in the world, and that stupid little side loader thing is not that great either. But why would you go and butcher this little Krag like that? Like, here's an original Krag, just for those of y'all to see, and I have one. That's what it looks like right here in its original condition. And the US made about, I think, 500,000 of these over its production history of 10 years. And they all looked like this. And then for some reason, in the 40s and the 50s and the 60s, it just went into vogue to buy these things up and do that to them. It's terrible. Wait a minute, this is actually the carbine version. I'm sorry. This is the sporterized version. It's terrible. I don't like it. It's awful. And it also drops the value of these things down through the floor. Like, if it was an original carbine that looked like that originally, then they go for a very high amount. But if you take a infantry version, just a normal long rifle like this one here, and then you just go and cut the stock off and then cut the barrel down, that kills the value. It goes from being about $1,600 for a Krag all the way down to like $400 or $300. I'm not a big fan of doing that to a rifle, and that's why I use well, I'm not a big fan of modifying my rifles that are historical. I want to keep them in their original condition, and that's why, at the end of the day, I shoot nothing but iron sights. So with that, I hope that answers that, Bobo. I feel like I got a little impassioned there, but I'm really passionate about keeping historical rifles in their original condition instead of doing any modifications to them, because it just ruins the value of them, it destroys the history of them, and also it doesn't keep to its originality. So I'm really, really huge into that. Also, there's the bayonet that they used to come with. That is one hell of a bayonet. That thing's like a...
That's basically a knife.
A knife? No, man, that thing's like a freaking scimitar that you'd find on a Corsair ship. This thing was big. And then it got even funnier with the 1903. I'll show you the 1903 with, I believe it was the 1907 bayonet. Let me see if I can find a picture of it on the rifle. Nope, that's not it. That's a Lee Enfield. I can't find it, but the blade... Wait a minute, here we go. That is the original bayonet that the 1903 would be issued with, and it's like 17 inches long, so it's practically a small saber, almost. It's huge.
Yeah, you know, one gun that I've always wondered why you've never gotten since you like old ones is a Thompson.
Well, I have one.
What?
Yeah, I have a Tommy gun.
When'd you get that?
Like a while ago.
Did you sell it or something? I've never seen it.
What, a Tommy gun?
No, a Thompson.
The Tommy gun is a Thompson.
You gotta be kidding me.
Yeah. I'm not...
Like from the war?
Yeah.
I didn't ever know that.
Yeah, they're literally the same. This is the...
Oh my god, is it the same?
Yeah, this is...
Okay, now see, the reason why I'm getting it mixed up is because yours has that, like, drum on it, and the one that I've always seen from the war photos have the, like, stick mag.
Yeah, well, actually, this one did come with a stick mag. It's got a 20-round stick mag that you can throw on it, so it pretty much is the Tommy gun from the Second World War. The British actually bought a lot of these from the United States in 1939 and early 1940, but they dropped them because they were incredibly expensive, but they kept them around. And the British, actually used the ones that I have, like this one with the vertical foregrip. And then the United States, once we entered the Second World War, we had the Thompson gun revisited, and we went and simplified it a good deal for military service. So we ended up making the M1 Thompson right here that you're probably thinking about, where we removed the vertical foregrip, and we also moved the charging handle from the top of the receiver to the side of the receiver to make it a little bit easier to handle.
Yeah, I think that's what it might be. But I'll be straight up, I didn't even know that the Tommy gun was the Thompson. Like, that never registered in my mind.
So this whole time
I'm not well versed on old guns. I'm more versed on modern guns.
Oh, I could tell. I mean, like, you didn't even know it was the same gun. So the whole time I've had this gun, you've been thinking it's not a Thompson?
No, I thought it was like, the gangster gun. So that's the only thing I thought.
Oh my god, I can't believe that. That must be why you weren't impressed with it. Because when I brought it back, I'll be honest with y'all. I brought it back, I was like, look, I got the Tommy gun. And Matthew went, honestly, man, it's like not that impressive. And that was it. And I was like, what do you mean? This is the submachine gun that the US used during the whole of the Second World War. And he was like, yeah, I'm not really into it. And now he's finally
I'm still really not into it, but like it's one of the cooler older guns. I just really not a huge fan of older guns.
Well, I can tell you, I'm a really big fan of the Carcanos, and I want to eventually get a Carcano. Someone's about to make the connection, and I'm waiting for it. I'm just kidding. I don't really like Carcanos, but someone's about to sit there and go, oh my god. Because I don't know if you know this, Matthew, but the Carcano was the rifle that supposedly, allegedly, was the one that got Kennedy.
Yeah, definitely a big allegedly on that one, all caps.
Allegedly, because I don't think the Carcano's got magic bullets, but you know, it's still allegedly the one that did it. A real rifle that I do want though is a Springfield trapdoor. And I say this a good bit. Springfield trapdoor, misspelled that, but who cares? Right here.
Trap did a door.
Trap deer. But here's a Springfield.
Yeah, I think you showed us one the other night.
Yeah, and then another one that I want is a Martini Henry, but I've already consigned this to Fantasy because the ammunition's impossible to get a hold of. But it's a really nice rifle as well. Pretty much the same thing as a Springfield trapdoor, but the British version of it. And it has a little bit of different mechanical function, but in the same thing. Another one I wanted is the Chespot rifle from the French, which was a bolt gun. Fairly neat. Actually, it wasn't a bolt gun, it was a needle gun. And then the Dreiss needle gun, which was the original needle gun. These things are super cool. And then the other one, and everyone's like, what the hell is wrong with you, man? Like, all of these are from, like, the mid to late 1800s. The last one that I want is a Maxim gun. Now, this one will be the toughest one to get, because you got to get a tax stamp for it, and they're rare. But this thing is an American-designed machine gun. Hiram Maxim was born in Massachusetts. He designed this thing in Europe, and so, of course, the Europeans largely bought it. But it is an American-designed machine gun. It's famous around the world and revolutionized warfare forever. It's going to be the most difficult one to get a hold of, but I really like this gun. So with that, I hope that does address my gun stuff a little bit. And if you want to, real quick, Mandy, what are some guns on your wish list?
I've always wanted a Scar. That's another one. Although they're so expensive, it's crazy. Also, MP5 is really cool, but they're way overpriced as well. I basically liked. Whoa, is that a Scar pistol? Did I see that right?
Oh,
in the bottom right corner.
Right.
When did that come out?
Sometime around, apparently.
It's an actual pistol. It doesn't have a brace or anything on it.
I don't like that, though. I like them with the stocks.
I don't know. That pistol is kind of busting. I kind of like it.
I don't like that at all. That thing looks hideous. But I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not really a big fan of the Scar because the stock looks so bulky. Like, the whole thing looks like a big little a chubby thing. Like, I don't know. I don't like it too much. But, you know, it is what it is. What's the... Oh,
yeah, I like the Scar. I like all variations of it.
MP5.
I like the precision one, too.
So let me ask you this, man. Do you like the... Oh, look! It's the one I have. It's literally the one I have. It's a 22.
With the fake suppressor on the front of it.
Yeah, because, you know, it has to meet the barrel requirements, so they put a fake suppressor on it. And then you have this one here. I think that one's also... Is that 9mm? Because it looks like the same magazine as the 22.
That might be the real one.
That might be a real one. Man, they have a lot of these 22s for sale. Like, that's most of the search results here.
I remember people were clamoring for the one you got. Like, there was a couple of people lined up to buy it.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, this thing was actually quite a steal. I think I got it for about $350 or $400, so it was very cheap. And then, of course, 22 is gotten expensive, but back when I bought 22, it was about 4 to 2 cents a round. That was pre-disease. Nowadays, it's like, I think, 10 cents a round or 8 cents a round, so it's increased a lot, but it's still incredibly cheap compared to the alternatives.
That's true. Also, real quick, look up the B&T 10mm, like Jonathan said. I think I've seen that gun before, but I can't remember it.
10mm pistol in it. Yeah, it's a pistol. I've seen this thing.
Oh yeah, those are pretty cool. I've seen some guy on YouTube called The Collector who like has a crazy gun collection. He has like a couple of these that are really, really cool.
Yeah, they are pretty neat. Oh, I forgot one rifle that I would love to get, and it's really cheap, is a K31. These things are from Switzerland, and they are imported to the United States at a fairly consistent rate. What's cool about them is that they have this bolt called a pullback bolt, and so instead of our normal bolt-action rifle, where you lift the handle up, pull it back, push the bolt forward, and then push the handle back down, all you do is you grab this little, I guess you could say toggle here on the side, and you just pull it straight back and then push it straight back forward, and it loads the gun. So it removes 2 extra, I guess you could say, movements that you have to do with a normal bolt action, and just turns it into 2, a backwards motion and a forward motion.
I had too much wood on this gun for my liking.
And
also, what happened to that neutrality? They're over here making rifles again.
Dude, they're always making rifles. The Swiss make great guns.
Neutral country making rifles.
Swiss service rifles. I got to show you a couple of them because the Swiss really make cool looking guns. Let's see, list of equipment of the Swiss Army. Here's an STGW 90, which looks like a FAL. I think it might be a FAL. I don't know, but it's got a grenade launcher on it. What else do they got? We're looking for the rifles. Oh, look, a Renault FT. 5 of them are in service?
They still have them working?
They still run? I don't believe that. I'm not believing that until I see one on film. Wait, hang on. Okay, hang on. They were removed from service in 1944. I was about to say, that is bull right there. I'm not believing that for a minute. So let's see here. Individual, the Sturmgewehr 90, Sturmgewehr 07, the pistol. But what about... well, it only shows us the modern small arms here. Service rifles, Switzerland. Okay, nothing. Never mind. We're moving on. We're going down a rabbit hole here. But with that, we are on to the next one. But thank you so much once again for support and allowing me to talk about that and go down that rabbit hole.
All right. And let's see, that was Panama's super chat that brought that on. So thank you for the support once again. And up next, we have a $20 super chat from Jonathan. Enforcer, what say you? In Matthew's voice.
Well, I say thank you. I say thank you for the
I actually
support.
said it for him. So.
Yeah. And I thank you so much for the support and saying that, because I thought it was funny when you threw it in, and it really threw me for a loop right then, even though I knew it was coming around the corner. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope we addressed that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. Then up next, we have a $20 super chat from Tom Slick, who says, Matt and Enforcer, great work, guys. And thank you, Tom.
And thank you, Tom, for enjoying the great work. We try our best to make sure we deliver on this every single night. And I'm glad to hear that you do enjoy our great work and want to help to keep it running and help to support us and keep us doing this work. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope we addressed that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you for being a Lee Spring Army soldier.
All right. And up next, we have a $20 super chat from Edmund Dugar, who says, have you guys ever heard of Russia's S-70 stealth drone?
S-70 stealth drone. I don't think I have. S-70 drone.
I think that is a Volvo, though. S-70.
Hang on. It looks a lot like something else, doesn't it?
It looks like the replica drone version of the B-2.
No, actually it looks a lot like something we've made. Let me go and check this out. U.S. stealth drone. Looks a lot like ours. And there's a Iranian copy of it, and then the Russians make a copy of it. I have a feeling these things don't exist in numbers, because we haven't seen any of them used in Ukraine. 2 flyable prototypes have been made so far, and their introduction will supposedly be in 2024, although in reality it will probably never be introduced due to their tiny budget, and also the lack of an ability to ever introduce anything into actual service. So I haven't seen it before. I have seen it now, and it doesn't appear that they have any operational drones of this kind either. There's only 2 of them, and they're both prototypes. And so with that, I hope that answers that fairly well. I thank you so much for the support, and I thank you for letting us know about that thing, because I didn't know that the Russians tried to make a cheap copy.
All right. So I didn't hear the cue that time, but I'll assume I'm moving on.
Yes.
Thank you, Edmund, once again for the support. And up next, we have a $20 super chat from Rob Bertram, who says, Zanzubs LSA,
Hi.
Slava Ukraine.
He says, long live the LSA in Ukrainian, and then Slava Ukraini, which means glory to Ukraine. And so with that, thank you so much for the support, Rob. And also, January in la Ukraina. I think that's how the song goes. But anyways, January, I think that's how that's pronounced. LSA and Slava Ukraini. And thank you so much once again for support, Rob, and helping this channel to keep on rolling. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support.
And up next, we have a $15 super chat from Gary Robbins, who says, would one of the best investment would be to feed captured Russians?
It would be a fairly good investment. You don't want to starve them or starve them to death, because then the Russians may start starving Ukrainians to death that have been captured by them, and that wouldn't be good. And so with that, I thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again.
Uh-oh. Lag. You're still there?
Oh, no. Oh, no. I'm still here. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Oh, good.
You sped up like 100 miles an hour just then.
Oh, no. Oh, man. I get no respect around here.
No. Anyways, up next we have a $10 super chat from BC Skyman, who does not leave a comment. But BC, if you are still here, thank you very much for the support once again. And of course, BC is a channel legend. Forcer, what say you?
He is channel legend. And of course, I have to thank you once again for the support, BC Skyman, because without you, this channel wouldn't have been possible. And I thank you so much for donating to the fundraisers and also supporting this channel and helping us to keep running as well. And so with that, thank you once again. And we are on to the next one. But thank you for being a channel legend too, because whenever you're here, everyone's like, hey, it's BC Skyman. And I'm also like, hey, it's BC Skyman. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $10 super chat from Trevor Smith, who says the radioactive Ukrainian soldier isn't at risk of radiation. The main issue is small particulates, which would be stuff like dust and cloth pieces.
Man, aren't you a nerd? I'm just kidding with you, but thank you for the support and clarifying that for us. And hopefully he doesn't run into any of that stuff, because that wouldn't be good for him. Now, would it?
I think just being in the area can also expose you to it as well, even if it's not necessarily being kicked up.
I think it can. And if I remember correctly, it's somewhere around here where the little bumper car thing is. Let me see if it is. Oh yeah, here it is. There's the bumper cars right there. Very nice.
Oh yeah. I wouldn't be sitting on it.
I wouldn't sit on them. I wouldn't actually go into this area. I'd be scared to. And also we can see what it looks like nearly 40 to 50 years later, what a abandoned Soviet town looks like. Let's look at this thing. Is this the Liquidator's swimming pool? No. What the hell? That's just bizarre.
Yeah.
And there's an old picture of the place. It says Slava Dini in Saba Party. So glory to the party and glory to something else. Dude, they really made the propaganda line simple back in the day. Glory to the party, and that was it. This must have been the party headquarters, I'm assuming. But where in the world is the Liquidator swimming pool?
Is there a swimming pool?
There is.
Oh, they're to the left?
I think it might be in this building, if I remember right.
I think you missed it. I saw it on the note back there.
Oh, yeah, the Azure swimming pool. Here it is. This thing was used during the entirety of the liquidation process in Chernobyl, which occurred over the course of several years, to give the liquidators, I guess you could say, some kind of enjoyment while they were taking on a good amount of radiation. You can also see that the Soviets were so emblazoned with the idea of propaganda that they'd even put red stars on these stands near these concrete posts. And you can also see all the gas masks that have been left behind that are now being sold by military surplus stores here in America. But anyways...
Wait, the radioactive ones are being sold?
No. They are not being sold. They can't be taken out of here. But I'm sure that there's
I was about to say.
maybe a few. But still, Really, really interesting place. Look, an old Soviet typewriter. Wow.
Or cash register.
Well, yeah, cash register. Whoops. Whoopsies. Just about to say, you idiot. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support and sharing with us the information that you know about radiation. I'm not the know-it-all expert on everything, and I thank you for clarifying that, because I don't really know a lot about how radiation works. All I know is that I want to avoid it with a passion, any kind of radiation, or the fact that it even gets close to me. But with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support.
All right, and up next we have a $10 super chat from Chip Kerwan, who says, search 0L by Harvard Law School. It's learning modules to prep before you start law school. During your 1L, this is only 0 either of you will encounter.
Well, I thank you so much for the support. I would pull it up, and it looks like we got Star Citizen patch notes coming up here.
No, like 0-L.
Oh, 0-L.
Harvard.
Harvard.
No, like the word 0-L.
That is the word. Oh.
That's the number.
0. Here we go. Harvard. Look, guys, we're in Harvard. I'm not smart enough to get here. But let's see here. We might want to do something like this. Maybe. This guy's got some red glasses. I'll tell you that.
Red glasses, that's something.
That's something. Is that...
Doesn't really match the suit.
Doesn't really match the suit. No, you would think you get like black rim glasses or gray glasses or something. Doesn't really match the suit. So that's kind of weird. Anyways, moving on from that. Someone's about to say, "What? Are you judging his design fashion?" I am. He shouldn't be wearing.
Do we want to talk about suits again? Oh.
But anyways, thank you so much once again for support and sharing that with us. And we probably will look into that and start working on that sometime in the summer. When I met you in the summer. But with that, we're on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support.
All right, and up next we have a $10 super chat from Vance Hicks, who says, Enforcer, Britain didn't pay off their World War II debt to us until 2006. Have we given Ukraine equally generous terms for the support given?
Oh, of course. Everyone gives out very generous terms whenever providing money, because you don't want a country to default, because then that causes massive economic issues worldwide. And not only that, you probably won't get the money back at all then. So you want to make it really lenient so that way they can eventually repay it. And so I hope that answers the question fairly well. And I don't know a lot about economics and lending of money from nation to nation, and also lend leasing and such things like that. But I'm assuming that's how it works. So take it with a grain of salt. But I thank you so much once again for support. I hope we answer that the best we can. And we are on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support.
It was my understanding that the money we're giving to Ukraine isn't required to be paid back, though.
I don't really know. I think some of it is and some of it isn't. It really just depends on what specific thing we're talking about.
Okay.
And so
with that, we're moving on to the next one.
Yeah.
And up next, we have a $10 super chat from Marion Deemert, who says, for the pizza, and you guys rock. Thank you, Marion.
And thank you, Marion, for the support to the Pizza Fund. It does help us out a great deal and helps us to eat pizza. Believe it or not, we like pizza. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support, Marion Deemert, and helping us to keep this thing running. And with that, we are on to the next one. Thank you for being a Lee Spring Army soldier and helping this channel to keep on running.
Yes, indeed. And up next, we have a $10 super chat from Susie Q, who says, have you guys heard of the dogs of Chernobyl?
Yes, we have. And we've also heard how a lot of them during the liquidation got shot, because they showed that on the HBO show. And also, that's something that you read about whenever you read about Chernobyl, is that they killed all of the animals they could in that area. They didn't get them all, though, and some of them still live there to this day. But for the large part, yes, I have. And it was a very sad story. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support, Susie Q. I hope I answered that fairly well. And we are on to the next one. And thank you once again.
All right. And up next, we have a $10 super chat from WL, who says, do you think F-16 will be delivered to Ukraine eventually?
Yes, I think it will be eventually. It will not be now. It'll probably be with at least after the next 4 months. But I do think he'll make it there at some point or another. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that fairly well. And we are on to the next one.
All right. And up next, we have a $5 super chat from Madison Music Teacher, who says, how much is language a factor in war? It seems Ukraine and Russia speak the same language. What if they didn't?
It wouldn't really matter much if they did or didn't, because if a war breaks out and there is a distinction in between one side or another, it doesn't really matter if there is a language difference. It just matters if you can mobilize the two groups, make them a little bit hostile against each other, and things work out just fine. Just look at the Civil War in the United States, for an example. Both the Confederate States and the United States both spoke the exact same, I guess you could say, variant of English. I don't really know how to describe it. There's like for example, with Spanish, there is actual Spanish, and then there's Latin American Spanish. I don't really know what we would call the variations of dialect. It's dialect. They're pretty much the same dialect, minus a difference in accent. But over the course of the Civil War, both sides would be heavily radicalized against each other. The South would have a vehement hate for Northerners, and the Northerners would have a vehement hate for the South. So the language doesn't really play that much of a role in most wars. It's just that if the languages are different, it does make it a little bit easier to dehumanize another group. But beyond that, it still leads to the same end. It's just a matter of speed and how quickly they get to that. And so with that, I hope that does address that question fairly well. And thank you so much once again for the support, Madison Music's Teacher. And I haven't noticed you around here for quite some time, so welcome back. And with that, we are on to the next one. Thank you once again.
All right. And the next one goes to Roadrunner, who puts in a 5, along with Leopard Bob, who also puts in a 5, and CK Bold does the same. And thank you all three for that support, Roadrunner, Dupper, and CK, and we appreciate it very much. Enforcer, what say you?
I say thank you. I thank you very much. Thank you for helping.
Very simple, man.
Yeah, very simple man. He's a family man. But still, I thank y'all so much once again for the support and helping this thing to keep on running. Because if it wasn't for all of y'all, it wouldn't have been possible. And so thank you so much once again. And we are on to the next one.
All right. And the next one goes to Anthony Bestwick, who puts in a 5 and says, mid-80s, I was invited to Bisley Range and managed top 10 finish at 500 yards with a 10-inch group using Lee Enfield 303. Also look at Pen Wafen.
Pen Ifan. I don't know if that's right or not. Where is this? Where is this? Oh, this is in South Wales. So this, I guess, I think these are the valleys or the marches. I'm not really sure which one it is. It's in the Brecon Beacons Park. But let's take a look at it. Wow. That is a hill. Wow. That's the top of one. At 886 meters tall. So that's about... It's about a mile, well, less than a mile up. But it's getting close to being a mile high. Man. It's beautiful in Wales. Wales is a very beautiful place in Britain. I love Snowdonia. Snowdonia is this times 2 and all over. But that is beautiful. I actually didn't see that mountain, and we drove really close to the area. I think we were in the area of Cardiff, but I never saw this. But it is beautiful, and also I like that dog. Look at that little dog. It's got a little vest on and everything. How cute. In the little trees, and there's the sheep. Uh-oh. Uh-oh, watch out. Watch out, there's a Welsh person over there. Stop, run, sheep! But anyways, keep on. I'm just kidding to all the Welsh viewers. Y'all know what I'm talking about, but I'm just kidding with y'all. But man, it's beautiful out there. I mean, look at that. That is something.
Very nice.
Very nice. Very nice indeed. Yeah, look at that. Let's see. And the little footpaths and the little creeks. Hopefully that's not like the Strid where you fall in and you just die, you get battered, you know, you go to like the center of the earth or something. But man, that's beautiful. I gotta tell y'all, Britain is a beautiful country. Very, very beautiful. People are really cool too. But their country is just unbelievably beautiful throughout the entire thing. Once you leave the cities, it is just next level. You don't see stuff like this in the United States, like this kind of, I guess you could say, landscape or anything. It's all different. Of course, America is extremely beautiful as well, but it's not beautiful in this way. This is its own kind of beauty. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support, Anthony Bestwick. And thank you for sharing this with us. And also really cool to hear that you were able to score in the top 10 with a Lee Enfield. I've always wanted a Lee Enfield, specifically the Mark III, not the Mark IV, because I love the look of the Mark III. Once again, though, 303 is the issue, because 303 gets more expensive with every year, and I don't know of anyone who's making new 303, but these guns are nice, very nice too, and I really like the Lee Enfields. And so with that, we are on to the next one. Thank you so much once again for the support and sharing that with us. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $25 super chat from Rocco World Domination, who says, add this to your pizza fund and Igor and Slava Ukraine.
Igor! And thank you for the support, Rocco World Domination, and adding that to our pizza fund. I will make sure to enjoy many delicious pepperoni pizzas, and Matthew will probably eat Supreme Pizza. And then we'll probably get some kind of weird pizza that is just a hybrid, like chicken barbecue or something. But I got to thank you so much once again for support, because you are helping us to eat all of the pizzas we can. And so, thank you so much once again. I hope we addressed that fairly well. And thank you, Rocco World Domination, for helping this channel to keep on running. And also, Slava Ukraini and pizza from Ukraine. And with that, we're on to the next one. And thank you for the support.
All right. And up next, we have a $5 super chat from Philip Fixes, who says all future tank models should come with a drone. The drivers should have VR with a 360 camera feed. The gunner gets an Xbox controller. The drone in my super chat is piloted by the tank commander instead of standing out a hatch looking around. Slava Ukraine.
And thank you for the support. And I think that would be a really cool idea if they built in a drone cradle to the top of a turret where a hatch could open. The drone lifts up out of the hatch. It can fly around. The commander can control it from inside the tank and also use it to look around the tank. Or every time the tank turns on, there are two drones. One of them takes off and flies directly above the tank, and the commander could wear a VR headset or something similar where he can just look around in a third-person view around the tank and see if anyone's getting near it, if there's anything in the distance that they want to fire at, and it also adds elevation to what he can see. And once that drone runs out of battery, it lands in its little alcove, and the second one goes up, and then it keeps on flying while the other one recharges. I think that would be a fairly interesting idea, and of course it may need more than two drones. You may need like 3 or 4 per tank at that point, but I still think that would be an incredibly cool idea. Definitely next generation and innovational as far as a tank's optics and what it's able to see and what it's able to do. So I think that's a really cool idea, and I think you're coming up with a really neat one, like the drones with nets, comically large nets, or the shotgun idea. And so with that, we are on to the next one. Thank you so much for coming up with something that is raw innovation.
Indeed. And I agree. I think it should have a drone on all future tank models. That would be very cool. Multiple drones. They can just be like launched and like, shot out. That would be really cool.
I do.
But up next, we have a $5 super chat from Lawrence Krieger, who says, keep up the good work. And thank you, Lawrence, very much for that support. And we also will try to keep up the good work. And thank you very much. And up next, we have a $2 super chat from Jay Lassing, who says, what's new with you boys? I like hearing about y'all.
So,
and for me, I got to say, just got the little math class going on, a little statistics class. I must admit, made a small little mistake on a little quiz today and ended up making a 80. That brought my overall grade down to a 97, and I was so hurt. But unfortunately, what about you?
What happened with me over the past few days is I go to college every day of the week, the weekdays now, so it's 5 days a week. I got up, I went to college today, went to an archives building, sat down, looked at some stuff. That was pretty neat. Hung out with a friend for a little bit in that class, but I was so tired this morning, I really couldn't conversate well, and so I was like, hey, I'm sorry. I got no sleep, and I'm sorry about that because I'm hardly even talking well right now. And they're like, nah, it's fine. So then I went and got something to eat, hung out with another friend. I don't know if they're watching the show right now. I don't know if the both of them are, but, recapping their story today, they're gonna be like, oh, crap, he's talking about us. But anyways, went and got something to eat. Then I got in my car and I came back home. And then I sat in here, and then I went to go get us some more food to eat because by that point it was supper time. And then we got supper, ate, then I went and got ready to run the stream, and then worked until now. I hate that. I hate that whenever anyone asks me about my daily story, it's pretty much the same one every day. There's not really a lot of room for variations in what I do. So unfortunately, for 5 days a week, it's the exact same story, and on the weekends, there might be something in there interesting that happens, but beyond that, not a lot really happens that's special. But I hope that does address the comment fairly well, and I thank you so much for the support and being interested in our normal daily lives, because it is what it is. There is One thing that is really interesting about what we did with the archives, though, the other time we went in there on Wednesday, we actually got to take a look at a book that was printed in the 1480s, I believe 1488, and that's about the oldest book I've ever actually been able to physically see. So that was really neat to me, and I thought it was really cool to look at the kind of paints and colors that they used in the book, and also the print font, and also how it was laid out. It was very interesting. But with that, I hope that answers your question fairly well, and I thank you so much once again for the support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And also, you know how many hours of sleep I got last night?
How much?
Literally 2 hours. Literally.
Really?
Yeah, that was it. 2 hours.
Yikes. So that's why you were sleeping on the couch this morning while I was leaving.
That was why.
Damn.
And that still wasn't enough. That was only like 3 hours. So in total, I got 5. I can do that simple math.
Dang, man. You slept as much as I do on a normal day. But with that, we are on to the next one, yeah? But I do understand your pain because it is horrendous to only get that much sleep. It sucks. But with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next we have a $10 super chat from Avari Mandubratis, who says, "Could you please take a short tour of High Street in Edinburgh, Scotland, and find us some good kilt shops like Loch Curran and the Tartan Museum? Start with Edinburgh Castle and try your Scots voice."
All right, Scotty. All right, we're gonna take a look at Edinburgh. And hopefully I'm doing this well. I know that someone's about to sit there from Britain. They're going to tell me it's a Glaswegian accent, you little idiot, you little shite. And I'm going to be going, oh, man, I'm sorry, mate. But right here, you can see the Royal Yacht Britannia. Very cool ship. You can get a glass of water on here. Very nice, yeah. I can't do the Scottish accent well. I know I'm about to get flamed by all the British viewers that are watching at like 4 in the morning. But this actually used to be the old Royal Yacht. They decommissioned it back in the 90s. And it was pretty neat. They decommissioned it right after the British gave back Hong Kong to China in 1999, I believe. So it hasn't been there for long. But let me go real quick and find, let's see, there's Queen Street. That's the street. No, High Street. We want to find High Street. High Street. That's Market Street. Then here's High Street. So you'll probably find this very interesting, Avari, is that my kilt is actually from the Lochran Company here in Edinburgh. I went out of my way to try and find the best kilt that I could get, and Lochran was the best. So I spared no expense on the kilt. You can see Hector Russell. I haven't really heard much about them, and it appears that their kilts are a little bit, it's cashmere knitwear. And also, it looks like a door's been busted out. Someone was really wanting a kilt. They busted through the window. But let's see here. But man, I love Britain, I gotta tell you. We never went to Scotland. Hopefully one day we will. I'm gonna try and do the Scottish accent again. Hopefully
The wee Scot.
The wee little Scot. But
There's the wee gift shop. Literally. Did you see that?
The wee gift shop. It's right here in this little corner of the building. But really neat.
I have a feeling if the Corgis could talk, this is the accent they would talk with.
I am gonna
hello, wee Scot.
I'm gonna cut you up, you little. Oh wait a minute, I can't say that stuff, you little wee bastard. But still, moving on down the street, we can take a look and see that there was a paving job on this road at one point. Looks terrible. They ought to take it off and show the couple. I can't do the Scottish accent anymore. I'm telling you, I'm so sorry, y'all, because I used to be able to do one really well. But I love streets like these. And here's number 1 High Street. Cask ales and regular guests. So apparently they serve regular guests, like, straight out of the tap. But still...
I wish we had stuff like that in America. Like, you know, it said coffee and snacks. Like, that would be so nice if we had, like, pubs in America. And, like, this sort of, like, city, like, thing here. Not like New York. That's a different type of deal.
We do, but they're always so gimmicky, you know, like the Irish pub things. Like, they're not really Irish pubs. They may as well just be restaurants. You know, it's like no snacking and just hanging out kind of stuff. And you know, what's interesting is that America never got pub culture because we didn't have the evolutionary process that led Britain to have pubs. Back in the day, A pub was where you could go to keep warm because it was very expensive to burn coal or firewood inside of a house, and usually you lived with like 16 other people in a very small house. So a pub would be the place to go to get drinks, hang out with people, and also keep warm. And so the pubs evolved pretty much as just a hangout place, a hangout spot. Here in America, we never really got that because people were either so isolated from each other that there really was no purpose for a hangout spot. Taverns were a thing for a little while, but would die off fairly quickly. Once you entered the 1850s or so, they were pretty much gone by that point. And we also
and also Chip Kerwan, Dunkin' Donuts doesn't qualify as a pub.
No.
Definitely not. Somebody about to say Starbucks in a minute.
And the Observer said in America it's clubs, not pubs. I would have to disagree. Clubs are different than pubs. They're in a different category. And I know that pubs can get rowdy, yeah, but clubs in America are just totally different than pubs, because we did go over to some pubs in Britain and they weren't on the beaten path, and they were just literally like hangout spots. Like you could just go in there and sit in there and like hang out and just talk, and there wasn't like any extra loud music, flashing lights, or any feeling that you had to take LSD. You could just kind of hang out in there and just chit chat, get some cheap little snack to eat or a drink to have. But in America, you just don't have anything like that. And it's fairly interesting how that culture evolved, and I think it's really neat, and it shows some real British culture. Like the pub is British culture, just due to how their society evolved and progressed. But still, a really beautiful street, really beautiful city of Ori, and I hope one day I can go to Edinburgh, because it's a really cool place. And also you can see the urban sprawl with Edinburgh, because it used to only be this area around right here, but now it's expanded out into just a giant circle. But what's this here? Craig Miller Castle.
Did we ever go in a pub when we were over there last time?
We did.
Did we? Which one was it?
Let's see. It was one in London.
I thought we were scared to go into pubs, because our folks were like already like I guess like overstimulated from all the new stuff, so they were like scared to go in the pub.
No, remember it rained, and well, I'll show it to you. Remember we were.
Oh yeah, I remember now. But we didn't go in there to go eat. We just went there to go hide from the rain for a while.
Yeah, let me see if I can find it though. It was this one right here, the Red Lion on Parliament Street. It was that one.
Yeah, that's right.
And we went here. Now this one's a little frou-frou, I will say. But it was just a little neat hangout place, and I think Mom and me, because remember we got separated at one point in the trip. I think we went into one and y'all didn't. But we didn't eat in there or anything. We just kind of sat in there a little bit and then we kept on moving. I don't know if I'm remembering that right though. But we did go into at least 2 or 3 of them. And they weren't anything at all like a club in the United States. A club's totally different. And also in Britain, you can, if I remember this correctly from my British friends, you can get drinks at a pub as long as you're buying them with a meal at the age of 16 or older. And I was like, that's wild. It's like that's even crazy from an American perspective, because the drinking age over here is 21, but most people start drinking around 18 in America, even though it's not technically legal. I don't though. I still don't drink. But in Britain, it's just accepted that pretty much ever since you're really a teenager, you can drink, and really no one looks at that weirdly, which is very different from America. But anyways, with that, wait a minute. Booking.com has got hotels on 10 Downing Street? No, that's a lie. I'm not believing that.
Yeah.
Booking.com? More like booking.yeah, baby. And also, look, Porsche 911.
Ooh, that's kind of an older one, but still pretty cool.
Yeah. Also, then they stopped people from going down 10 Downing Street because the IRA dropped mortar shells on it on a speedboat on the Thames. So then they cut it off. Did you know that?
I think I heard about that, but just hearing it again, like, really got me.
It's just imagine. And what was crazy is that Margaret Thatcher was actually in Downing Street at that point with a meeting with her cabinet, and then mortar shells just started raining down around the building. None of them hit the building. All of them landed in the street in front of the building or back, I believe, in the parade grounds. But they didn't hit 10 Downing Street, and so after that, they set up the little fence, and then they don't allow anyone to just walk up onto the building anymore. Although
I just remember when they had that huge like, what was it, like a statue like they had on a wheelbarrow of that politician woman over there with the long nose.
Oh yeah. That was that one. We ended up Matthew's talking about when we went over there. There was this political protest against the sitting prime minister, and we got stuck in it. And then it started raining, and that's how we ended up in that pub for a little. But with that, I hope we addressed all of our British expeditions fairly well. Britain's a really cool place. And if I ever joke about Britain and you are British, just know that I'm joking about y'all in good fun and jest. I'm not being serious about it. Actually, some people have said that we're racist, which makes no sense because if we...
What?
Well, yeah, remember that, Matthew? Remember we've made jokes about Britain before and someone said, that's racist? And I don't think people get...
They're trolling.
Yeah, I don't think people get, though, like, if they're being serious, that we are legitimately British. We're like 90% British. So if we were supposedly a race, we would be British. So it doesn't really make much sense to call us racist. It's more like taking some fun at people who are very closely related to us. But anyways, moving on from that, let me go ahead and readjust my wooden teeth. We're on to the next. We're on to the next one. Thank you so much once again for the support of Ari, and I hope we addressed that fairly well.
All right. So on that bombshell, we're moving on to the next one, which goes to Anthony Bestwick. Once again, he puts in a $5 super chat. And no, Jonathan, we did not eat haggis. Anthony says, let's see if you get this right. Lou at Castle Coke. It's where I plan to marry before I get to ill. Also, Penwafan is where my ashes will go.
Oh, well, I thank you for the support once again, Anthony, and sharing that with us. And also, what was the other place?
The Lou at Castle Coke, like C-O-C-H.
Castle C-O-C-H. Let me go. Oh, this is in Cardiff. I think we may have... No, we didn't see that one. We saw Cardiff Castle in the center of the city with a Roman wall that's somewhat visible down here. We didn't go up to this
Castle
one,
Coke.
Heckler and Coke, or, I don't know the proper pronunciation. Wow, dang. Wait, hang on. I'm having a hard time.
That's almost German looking almost.
This is very fanciful. I feel like this wasn't actually made in the Middle Ages. I feel like this is something that was made in like the 18th or 19th century. But I don't know because it's super ornate on the inside, but it doesn't look like it belongs. This is really bizarre. I wish we had seen this castle when we were over there because this one's really something. What's the information behind this castle? Let's find it here. I was right. It's a 19th century Gothic revival castle built along the village of Unpronounceable in South Wales. I was right. I got it, Matthew. I knew it. I knew this castle wasn't a middle-aged castle. It was a reproduction, pretty much, of a castle from stories and fairy tales and stuff. But it's just too nice. It's just too fanciful. But this thing does look really neat. I'm not going to lie. Their recreation of a 19th century castle is better than most real castles from the 14th and 15th centuries. But it's neat. I gotta say, I really like this thing.
Yeah, I gotta admit, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Man, that is neat. And I thank you for sharing that again with us, Anthony Bestwick, in very cool locations, I'd have to say. Top of the line, 10 out of 10. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support.
And up next, we have a $20 super chat from SuperBunker9000, who says, hey guys, I'm alive and ticking. LSA, NAFO, Slava Ukraine, Igor.
Hey! And thank you so much for the support, Super Bunker. Welcome back. He's alive. He's alive. And also, long live the LSA, glory to NAFO, and Slava Ukraini. Igor! And so with that, we are moving on to the next one. But thank you so much once again for coming back, Super Bunker, and also letting us know that you're still alive. And with that, we're on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support.
Facts. And also, real quick, this poll's been running for 20 minutes. It has 700 votes on it. Let's go ahead and address it. The question is, in general, has the USA done the right thing in regards to supporting Ukraine? It looks like 70% said yes, we have helped tremendously. 7% said I'm undecided, and 23% said no, the USA has not fully delivered. On this one, I'm going to say that we have definitely helped tremendously. There's always more to be done, but we can't understate the amount of support that we have given, which is absolutely, in my mind, unprecedented toward one nation, and it has to be recognized. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would agree. We have definitely helped out tremendously, and while we can do more, we have helped out Ukraine more than any other nation, and we've helped them out in ways that have turned this war around. And so with that, I hope that does address that poll fairly well, and we're on to the next one.
All right. And up next, we have a $2 super chat from Dark Warrior 137, who says, "Can we start calling destroyed bobcats bombcats?"
Ooh! That's a good one. I think we will. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address that fairly well. And we are on to, you guessed it, the next one.
All right. And up next, we have a $2 super chat from Joe Little, who says, "Does the Enforcer have a Rumble account?"
I don't know what that is. So I would say no, because I don't know what that is. Let me pull that up real quick on the second screen, because I don't know what that really is. Let's see. No, I don't. It appears to be some kind of a video, platform. I do not have one there. I don't have an account. And so with that, I hope that answers your question fairly well. I thank you once again for the support. And with that, we're on to the next one.
All right. And our last one for now goes to Madison Music Teacher, who puts in a 2 and says, "I'm in Madison, Alabama, next to Dublin Park. Great place."
Madison, Alabama? How close? You see? Oh, I'm scared.
Oh, that's up there outside of Huntsville.
Yeah, it is. There's a really
We passed by it there.
There's a really cool place up here, Matthew. I'm going to show it to you in a minute. But real quick, I will show Madison. 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 Why in the world does this look like something from the Headless Horseman?
Said like a redneck. A headless horseman.
Why in the world does you look like something from the Headless Horseman? But neat place Madison is. There's a really cool little place nearby here. I gotta find it though. Creekside. I think this is actually it. Let me check. Oh look, this guy's wearing a kilt. Lame, get some class. I'm just kidding. But let's see. This is not it. This is not it. There's something nearby here though. I think this might be it. Let me see. Yeah, I think this is it. Let me see if I can drop down on Street View and show this to y'all. Oh man, it's been a century. Sadly, I don't think we'll be able to show it to y'all because this is from 2007. There is a town around here that is pretty much preserved in its original condition from the early 1800s, and it precedes Huntsville by just a few years, but I think that was it. But there is not really any good pictures or anything of it. Let me see if I can find y'all some here. Here we go. Yeah, here are some of the original buildings from the early 1800s that this town is known for. Very little in Alabama, and you can see that some of them are falling into a little bit of a state of disrepair, like those columns. But it is really cool to see what Alabama frontier life in early villages looked like, and this is what they are. And it's been largely preserved, which is really neat to see. So with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, and also really cool to hear that you're just a couple of hours north of us. Please, by all means, start driving. But anyways, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope we addressed that fairly well. And it's now time for us to move on into the live chats, I believe.
And also, Madison, that's right outside of Huntsville. That used to be one of the most affordable places to live in the entire country. But correct me if I'm wrong, Madison Music Teacher. I think the real estate prices have climbed because Huntsville's had a bit of a boom going on. And now it's lost its status, sadly. But it's good to see Huntsville's growing because it's a very nice place. And that downtown is just phenomenal. They got that Fed money going in there like crazy.
They got that freaking whatchamacallit, the General Dynamics koi pond or whatever.
Yes.
Who actually sponsored the pond? I forgot who it was. It
was like Lockheed or something. A lot of defense contractors around there. Ooh, where's this? Oh, that's the Museum of Art.
The Museum of Art. Oh man, I tell you, man, I'm not even gonna go into that about art and all. You know what I'm about to say, but let me drop you all down in this park. So this is what it looks like.
This is the Gucci part. This downtown is like one of the nicest I've seen in the entire country.
Oh, it is. It is really nice. This is all of that federal money. They just pump it in here like there's no tomorrow. And also, to show you all the Museum of Art, I've never been in it, so I want to see what's inside of it. Let's take a look. You know, I just gotta be honest with you. Not to knock it or anything, but I'm just not a big fan of modern art. This one's cool, though.
Yes, it's all right. I'm just not a fan of art either.
Well, I'm a fan of art. It's just not modern art. Like, I'm a fan of that kind of art. I think that's neat. But this stuff, like, I don't really get the point.
Yeah, it's a little different.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a whole backstory to this and everything.
Well, you see, the whole backstory to it is that there was this one guy in Austria who failed art school, and then he ended up causing an entire world war. And so now they let anyone do art. And they just laud it. But yeah, pretty much we're gonna be moving on to the next one now. But yeah.
But that downtown in Huntsville, though, I will say, it feels like it's from another era, like maybe 1960s or 1950s or something. But it's modern at the same time. And they also still have the nuclear like fallout shelter signs up and stuff on the buildings.
You know what it feels like? I know what it feels like. Pleasantville. Let me find the pictures of this. Let's see here. Like that.
Yeah, it really does. It
like,
has that like nuclear city feel to it.
Yeah, and also one other funny thing is that Matthew and me went up here to try and film a video before way back in like April of last year, and we never got it done, so it never went up. And we archived all the footage and everything. We walked this whole walkway on this canal thing to here, and it's like the city just ends here. It's like a video game. The rest of the land is undeveloped. So if you go here we go. Here's a picture from this place. So you see, look at all the beautiful foliage and the canal and everything, and then you just turn around and it's like the city just ends. Like there's a substation over there, there's a hotel over there, a railroad bridge. It's like, what the hell happened? Like it's very weird. It's a bizarre town, but it is really neat at the same time. And so with that, I hope we answered that. I hope we addressed that all fairly well. And now we are on to the next one.
All right. And moving on to our live chat questions. Up first, we have the Morse, which was solved by JP's RCs, Rumpelstiltskin, WFTU, and CFA. And Mark Hodges, too. They say the Morse code reads the following, is what it says.
Yep. That's what it says. Ding, 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 ding. Y'all got it correct. And I was wondering if Matthew would get tripped up over that, and I think he almost did. And so with that, thank y'all for deciphering that Morse code message again. And with that, we are on to the next one. And also, real quick, Jack's Dragon said, really? Art is what makes us human. Open your mind. I'm just saying this, though. If I have to strain to understand what the art is, it's not really art to me. If you paint up a person or you make a... Like, I'll show you what art is. Michelangelo's carvings, plural. This is art. That's what I qualify as art. Because it's not something that seems to be quickly thrown together. Because modern art looks a lot like that sometimes, where people just take paint, they throw it on a canvas, and then they say it's worth $10 million. This is priceless. This is truly priceless. This is the kind of art I would support, and I would say this is truly art, worthy of being in a museum, worthy of being shown for generations to come. This is what I like, and everyone has their own preferences, but modern art, like the bean, the silver bean art thing, this thing, I don't get it. It's like, I don't understand what this art is really supposed to be. Monet, someone just said Monet. Monet, I would qualify as art in a way because it was keeping realistic, it was beautiful, and it was trying out, I guess you could say, like a new art style. It's really nice looking. I think it definitely is art. Paintings are art, but they have to be artfully, craftfully done. I mean, look at that. That is impressive stuff. But modern...
Vincent van Gogh is another good one.
Oh yeah, Vincent van Gogh. He was really good too. It's just that whenever you look into his personal life, you're like, gee, man, like, But yeah, his stuff is great. Of course, everyone knows, I believe it's the Starry Night and some of the other ones as well. But they're impressive too. You know, I would say that art started to become unhinged, and where I didn't really like it, with Picasso. Like, Picasso is kind of like the beginning of the end of where I say art exists and art doesn't exist. Because this just started entering, like, what is this? You know? Like, it's a person, yeah, but, you know, it doesn't really seem impressive to me. You know, that's really what I'm trying to say.
Stories are what sell this art, because the art itself doesn't sell itself.
Yeah, and then you have to get into this whole thing of trying to read an epilogue to figure out what the art really is, and I feel like you shouldn't have to do that to understand art. Art should be something that you look at and you go, wow. Like this painting, I would sit there and look at that and go, wow, that is impressive and took skill and a lot of time to do. Things like Picasso, it's like, you know, doesn't really look like art to me. It just looks like something I could throw together, and if I can throw it together, it's definitely not art. So with that,
Bob Ross was on point. Like, I love landscape paintings.
oh, I love lands. I have to agree with you. I love landscape. Landscapes are beautiful. Like this one here, like that's beautiful. Like look at all of the story that it tells. It's like a nice little summer day. They're out near the ocean, not the beach, but the ocean. There's a whole bunch of people sailing their little boats around. There's some dreadnoughts further out at sea. You know, it's near a busy naval port. This is like art to me. It's beautiful to look at. It's visually stunning. You want to sit there and stare at it. But Picasso, you know, you just look at it for a second, you're like, eh. And unless you have a story, it's not anything to you. And then Inhammer said, let's see you pop out a Picasso then.
Everybody's getting upset about the Picasso comments. People are going off.
It's my opinion. Y'all can have different opinions at the end of the day. I'm not trying to battle y'all over my opinion or y'all's. I'm just saying what I believe. But I think this is art. So anyways, via on to the next one. And also Bob Ross is the man.
Yeah, Bob Ross is like the Gordon Ramsay of the art world. His presentation in making the art was a performance, and his art was actually good too. Kind of like Gordon Ramsay supposedly makes good food, although I haven't tried it, and he has a performance that goes along with it. But anyways, up next we have a question from Donna Olson, who says, can we talk about North Korea sending volunteers to assist Russia?
From what we've heard, they've never actually sent real physical volunteers to help out in Russia, but they have sent arms and supplies, small arms and mortar rounds and such things like that. But we've never gotten proof of North Korean volunteers being there or voluntold being there, so we don't really have a lot to say about that, and I'll have to declare ignorance on that for that reason. But with that, we are on to the next one. I hope we answered that fairly well.
And up next, we have a super chat from Canty Luden, who says, I always see logs added to sides of tanks in World War II pics. Is this effective? And Ukraine could do this to the Leopard 2s to increase survivability? Question mark.
So the logs are something that are always talked about a great deal. Everyone always talks about the venerable Soviet log. And I need to go find, there's Bournemouth, and then we need to go to Bovington and find the museum here. And I need to tell y'all something about the log. So let me go find a Russian tank, because they have
Nice tank.
Oh yeah, man, the Yank Tiger is a neat looking tank. And there's their tiger room, where they have all of their tigers, like this one. Let's see here.
I have a new appreciation for these tanks. When we saw them in person, I really didn't care. But the more I get to see them, the more I appreciate the design.
Oh yeah, they are very neat. I mean, all of this stuff in this museum was incredibly interesting, very neat. You could spend days at the Bovington Tank Museum. And then here's
this is my type of art. The art that actually has like real good mechanics behind it, and also a real good like artistic kind of like style. This is art in my opinion.
Well,
like a nicely designed car or a tank.
Well, I mean, I don't really know if tanks are art. I would say cars are art, but tanks really just serve a utilitarian function. In my opinion, I wouldn't call them art, but you know, it's up to art's subjective. Art is subjective.
It's my opinion, dang it.
Yeah, I'm not gonna bash you like some of our viewers bash me over my opinion on art. And then some people are, how dare you talk to me? Anyways, let me keep going. I'm trying to find the logs. Also, you can see this up here on top of a Mark IV. That's a bundle of sticks. They would roll that out, and supposedly it would help the tank to get traction, which is kind of what I'm trying to show here. But I can't find a Russian tank to talk about logs with y'all over. I know they have them, though, because I saw them before. Dang, I'm gonna get aggravated here. Dang it.
We're going to cuss out the viewers next.
Yeah,
Call them out. Call them out.
I'm gonna cuss out the viewers and then snub someone who tries to wrong a misunderstanding later on in the future. Let's see here. I can't find it. Let me go to the Imperial War Museum in London. Imperial War Museum in London. Let me go find it. There we go. I think they ought to have something in there about it. Let's see. Oh, YouTube wouldn't like that. So here's a T-34. I still can't find the log. Oh, look! A nuclear bomb! That's nice. Thank you, Imperial War Museum. Dang. What the hell is this? Oh, it's a camo. I was about to say, what? I was about to say something else. I was gonna be like, hey, wait a minute. I was like, that's not war related. There's a mini sub for Frogman. I think that's Italian. Let's see here. Okay, we're just gonna move on to type in the Russian tank logs. So the logs aren't really for armor protection, they're more so for traction. So if a tank gets stuck in the mud, the theory is that you can take the log off the back of the tank, shove it under the rear part of the treads, and then put the tank in reverse, and the log should give it enough traction that it's able to pull itself out of the mud, or if it can't, then you get a support vehicle. But this is like your first attempt at trying to get the tank out of the mud is with this log. It's not really for armor, and they could still work, but I think the tonnage of tanks have gotten so heavy, especially now, they're about 10 to 15 tons heavier than their World War II counterparts, that the logs may be somewhat less effective, and the weight of them alone will bog them down. So I don't really feel like they're that effective, but with that, I hope that does answer the question fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a question from Jillian, who says, did you hear that the U.S. approved long-range missiles for Ukraine?
I did hear that, and we haven't gotten any exact information on what missiles those are yet, but once we do, we will make sure to report on it. And so with that, via on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to, there we go, just had to get that typed, I messed up, but the next one goes to Value Radar, who says, is it even remotely realistic for Russia to field a 500,000 manpower second wave assault on Ukraine like they're claiming is imminent?
I don't really feel like it's possible. They're going to have some kind of supply issue with them. And so I feel like it's most likely not going to happen. To make that as sure as possible, it's mostly coming down to supply and also the availability of training. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
The next one we have is from Texan Dave, who says, what's up with the Switchblade killer drones? I haven't heard anything of lately.
Apparently they didn't work too well, and the Ukrainians largely abandoned them and went back to conventional drones like the Mavic 2s that they've been using beforehand, because we only saw a little bit of the Switchblades in use, and then the Ukrainians stopped using them for good. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a question from James Borovics, who says, did Russia and the United States cancel their new strategic arms reduction treaty? Reason why I'm asking is because the treaty both countries can have fly over their nukes.
Yes, that treaty was actually rescinded under a decision made several years ago. So there is no standing nuclear reduction treaty, and that's why the Russians are going, oh, we're going to make nuclear arsenal again, you know. But yes, there is no standing treaty that limits the use, limits the number of nuclear weapons in between the U.S. and the Russians. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And also, instead of typing it, because, getting tied up here, to answer JB's question here, he said something about a 930 turbo. JB, you ought to check out RWB Porsches. Those are really cool. It's a Japanese fellow that tunes them, and he does a really good job. But up next, we have another super chat. This one's from Madison Music Teacher once again, who puts in a 2 and says, Huntsville has the most World War II Jeep collection in the world.
Oh? Huntsville? Jeeps? I've been looking for one. I'm just kidding. I wouldn't get one because they're a decent amount of work, but let's see. Huntsville Jeeps. Jeeps. Oh, look, they have a Jeep dealership. You're right. They have a lot of Jeeps. I'm just kidding. We'll pull up the Willys Jeeps. Let's see here. Jeeps for sale in Huntsville. Jeepsforsale.com. 1952, 1949. No, 1948. two-door truck. Yahoo, my boy, Yahoo. But let's see here. How much does this one cost? Close. No. Wait, how do we X out of whatever? Close. Asking price $13,000? What's wrong with it? There's something wrong with this thing then. Because usually
It's sold.
Oh, it's sold too. Let's see. All original, 30,000 miles in original motor, 24 volts electrical system, seat top doors and side curtains, canvas in great condition. Comes with RT66 working radio and long antenna. Wow, for $13,000, that is a steal. I feel like there ought to be something wrong with it for that price, but it actually looks like it's in really good condition. Those things are cool,
Yeah.
but they're pretty much like ATVs, you know, now compared to modern cars and vehicles. But Willys Jeep Club. So they really do have a Willys Jeep Club up here. That is pretty cool. And I thank you for sharing that with us. That is really neat to hear that there are more Jeeps in Huntsville than anywhere else. I'm going to have to make sure to go up there next time and make sure to get myself a Jeep. Meet me. Veterans Museum. Wait a minute, he said Veterans Museum. Veterans Museum. Airport Road. Wow. That is a lot of Jeeps. Oh, what's this?
Please don't touch.
The Parrot gun. An M48, slightly rusted. I know what I have. I'm selling it for $40,000. An M4 Sherm. M4A2, I think. Then we got this thing for the military police. It is a Humvee prototype. That is a Humvee prototype. Cool. And M5. Pretty neat. Pretty neat. Oh, look! A 75mm AT gun. Really cool.
Nice.
Forget the woman in the middle of the picture. Let's see here. The Jeeps.
Everybody's about to be commenting on that. I know it.
So everyone's like, oh la la. Like, that's why I always avoid even mentioning it because I'm like, oh Lord, don't start it. But let's see. Huey. Pretty neat. Let's see here. We got. What in the world? That is a.
Have you seen the Dragon Man's Museum in Colorado? I saw Casey Johnson mention it.
I have seen it.
That's something. That's really something. He's got a shooting range out there, too.
It really is something. Also, look, Matthew, it's an M113, but one of the earlier versions of it.
Oh. Looks like the same one they actually made.
Oh, it's different. It's different, I promise you. I promise you that. It's different. Oh, yeah. Let's see here. Oh, it's a Johnson! It's my Johnson. If y'all don't know, I have this funny thing where I joke about this goofy gun. It's a semi-automatic rifle. Called the Johnson. That's really all there is to it, and I just find it hilarious that's called a Johnson. If you know, you know. But moving on from that, this is a pretty cool museum, and also cool to know that they have that many Jeeps. I mean, they have a lot of them. And they also have that little helicopter, the Sioux. I like Sioux. They're pretty neat. Oh, look! They have an M16, an M14, an AK-47. Why? It's an AKM, probably. It's probably an AKM. And an M45! Oh, that's cool. And then they have the M79, and they have an SKS. You can get those pretty cheap. You can really get all of these fairly cheap, and make that exhibit for yourself. But a really cool museum. And so I thank you so much for sharing that with us. And with that, we are on, you guessed it, to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a question from Peter G., who says, Enforcer Matt, seeing as you like Unimogs, and yes, I do, he says, look up Australian frontline machinery for X-ADF ones. There is even a six-wheel drive one and an SAS version of the six-wheel drive Land Rover. Ooh.
Six-wheel drive.
I haven't seen six-wheel drives of either one of those, but I have seen the six-wheel drive G-Wagon, which is absurd, which Australia had.
Holy moly.
Oh, wow.
And he's a little beefy.
Seems like it'd be really like hard to maneuver.
Dude, look at that. Look at this.
Was it ever used for military reasons? They said SAS version, but now it's just flexed by some person that has a lot of money that wanted to buy it and park it in the middle of central London.
So someone probably bought it and said, I'm breaking out of the Matrix. Let's see. Man,
That's the wrong environment for some vehicle that large is going to London with it.
I bet you there is someone who did it, though. Running,
yeah, I think it was in that picture.
call me Ed Sharpova. When you see oxen, man, it's over. But this
Matt
thing,
Pete and Boss going hard on the
look,
track.
yep, this one's in London. You could tell it's in the London suburbs. How
It's probably a
stupid.
lot cheaper in England too. Their cars are like a lot cheaper overall.
Yeah,
The average vehicle is a Mercedes over there. It's like their low end vehicle. Like I think you're considered a peasant over there if you have a Mercedes.
Dreadful peasants.
I'm like, wow, look at that nice Mercedes, and everybody's like, that's nothing. I'm like, what are you, crazy?
in America, it's something. But still, pretty cool overall, and pretty neat to see. And so, I thank you so much for sharing that with us, and I hope we looked at it fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next we have a question from, let's see here, Rob Fur, who says, how much of a difference will the long-range GLSDB missiles make for Ukraine?
A fairly big difference. The ground-launched small-diameter bombs do have a fairly decent range and also fairly high explosive yield, and so they'll make a fairly large difference. And so with that, I hope that does address the question fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
Right. And up next, we have a question from Bobo Uzala, who says, Enforcer, if you become president of the United States, how will you affect the status quo? And Matt, what cabinet position will you choose? And most likely, I'll choose none, because I'll probably be very happy in private practice. And it's probably where I want to stay, because honestly, I don't want to have anything to do with politics. That might change one day, but right now, I'm staying way away from it, coming from a political science major. But Enforcer, what say you?
I have to say that I can't really go into how I changed the country right now, because that will start getting political. And right now, I remain apolitical.
You see, the reason why, and I'm sure, you know, here it comes. If you're running for president, obviously you're going to have politics in there. And I know, obviously. But I'm not going to talk about that right now, because you know what I'm doing right now? I'm running a YouTube channel, and I don't want people to start getting divided over my political opinions, because I know it would happen. Because I'll sit here and say, my political opinions are A, B, and C. And then someone says, well, my political opinions are X, Y, and Z. I'm going to leave this channel because I don't like your opinions. And then they leave. And my whole thing right now is trying to keep people united in their support of Ukraine, and not really about what I'll be doing as president and what my views on current political situations are here in America. But it's a good question, though, and I will answer that eventually in the future. It's just that I want to remain apolitical right now. I would rather have everyone supporting Ukraine and, you know, doing that instead of getting divided over my political opinions, which are really inconsequential to the current matter right now. And so with that, we are on to the next one. But I hate that I couldn't address that fairly well.
All right. And up next, we have a super chat. This one is from Dustin Little, who puts in a 5, who says, send Ukraine these jet med suits with night vision. Like drones aren't bad enough. Lol. YouTube it. What's it going to take for Putin to admit defeat?
Let's see here.
Probably death.
Yeah, probably death. That's MedJet. We're looking for jet med. Suits.
There it is, right down there.
Ah, whatever. Oh, it's the flying wing. Oh, look at the Power Rangers.
Jet med.
Go,
I think they
Power.
are. I wonder if they're talking about that other company that makes the jetpacks.
I think they're talking about these.
That's a Jetmin.
Well, they're flying 120 mile per hour above Dubai. I mean, you know, it is what it is. Sadly, I don't think we can find what you're looking for. Maybe that's it.
The one I was talking about right there.
I don't really get the practicality of them, though.
Yeah, and you have to be like an expert to fly it. It's not real simple. Like, equipment needs to be really simple to train on. That's the goal, not make it super complicated.
Yeah, and I think a helicopter would still do the job better than that thing, because imagine you've got these hot jet engines strapped to your arms, and I'm sure a man-pad will pick that up, and they could still fire a man-pad at a flying person. So it's a cool idea. I really think that they should look into this idea further and see if they can flesh it out a little better. But for now, I would say I wouldn't send them in, because I feel like they would be one-man death traps that would be fairly expensive to use. But I still think there will be room for them in the future. And so with that, we are on to the next one. But thank you so much once again for the support and letting us address that question very well.
All right. And up next, we have a question from Andrew Petrie, who says, Well, getting philosophical here. He says, how do you two maintain happiness? Serious question, son. Thank you, son. I'm just happy to be alive. I don't know what else to say, but Enforcer, what say you?
How do I maintain happiness?
That's what he said.
I don't know. I don't know how I maintain happiness.
Oh, well, I got something to add. Stay productive, stay busy, and you won't have time to worry about happiness or sadness because you'll be so busy.
But my statement is, am I happy? Do you know that I'm happy? Do you not know that I sit down and I cry every night about what I see here on this channel? Do you know that I go around in a depression every single day? I'm just kidding. I don't do any of that stuff. But the way I keep happy, because I actually am an incredibly happy person with what I do, is I just stay happy. I mean, I don't really know how to explain it. But I just fairly stay happy. You know, I'm doing what I've always generally wanted to do, which is cover news and talk about things that I find important. I've got a very supportive the Lee Spring Army. You know, every one of y'all is very supportive of what we do, and that makes me fairly happy about what we do. So I would say all around, I don't really know how I keep happy. I just know that I do. It's kind of like having the end result you're looking for, but you really don't know how you got to it. Kind of like a normal math class. And so with that, I hope that does answer the question the best I can, because I have no idea how I stay happy. I just do. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And up next, we have a question from Torino10, who says, is there any footage of the helicopter ejection seat being used in Ukraine?
We have not seen KA-52s use their helicopter ejection seats on film. So we can't say that for certain. We don't know if the ejection seats have actually ever been useful. So I hope we answered that question fairly well, and we're on to the next one.
All right. And Heather Fitzgibbon said, you both got into law school. I guess she meant like in the scheme of the question, like, you know, how do you maintain happiness? You got into law school. I mean, yeah.
And also, Paddington said, money doesn't buy happiness, but it sure makes it easy. I'll guarantee you it doesn't actually pertain or help out with happiness at all. Because the thing is that look at all of the billionaires in the world and tell me, do they really look happy? Like, they've got super yachts, they've got anything they want. They aren't happy anymore because they have the ability to get anything, and they're not happy for that reason anymore. That's why I don't really aspire. That's why I wouldn't really aspire and make it a goal to be the richest person on earth, because at that point you've sucked the joy out of everything. You can buy anything or do anything because you have the money to do it, and then there's nothing to look forward to, because if you wanted to do something, you could do it right at that moment. So I would honestly say it's not really about money at all. It's really about being happy with what you're doing. Yeah, it's more like fulfillment about what you're doing. It's much more it's much better to be happy with what you're doing instead of being happy with where you got. So that would be my opinion of the lesson of the day. But I'm only 20 years old, so you know, take that for what it is. But with that, we're on to the next one.
All right. And up next, we have a question from. Oh, we actually have a super chat from Joe Little, who puts in a 5 and says, IMO, the Leaf Spring Army, has been suppressed. Oh. Do we have a spy in our midst?
IMO, the Leaf Spring Army has been suppressed. I don't know what that means.
Could it be a coup? What's happened?
Is it a
I'm
Fiat?
just making crap up.
I don't know what that means, but thank you for the support, and we're on to the next one.
All right. And up next, we have a question from, let's see here. Ukraine-Russia war said, being self-employed makes you happy. I will have to admit, that will make you happy. It is nice being your own boss, although it comes with a crap load of extra responsibilities that some folks are not prepared for sometimes.
In my opinion, it's a huge there's a huge trade-off there. It's really about what you're happier with. If you're happy with just showing up and getting paid, then working for someone is probably for you. If you're not happy with that, because there's usually a lot that comes with that, inefficiency, other things like that. If you're not a big fan of that, then working for yourself might be in your direction. However, I have never worked as hard as I have on this YouTube channel doing anything else. Like working as a clerk or a janitor almost at Publix, or being a restaurant server. even walking 12 hours a day, I feel like it wasn't as much work as of what I've done for a year on this channel. So it does have a trade-off. While I get to determine everything, I work like a dog. I've never worked like this before. And then on top of that, you add in college, and then that adds a whole bunch of extra stress and exhaustion to it. But yeah, that's what it is. I mean, like, it is exhausting, to say the least, to be self-employed like I am. But I'm more than happy to do it because I really enjoy it, rather than sitting there and having someone tell you, yeah, we're only going to give you like 18 hours this week. What? I need like 30. Yeah, but you're just going to have to deal with it. You could quit. That's actually what I was told at Publix. I got scheduled constantly for about 2 to 3 weeks for about 18 to 16 hours, and I would get like 2-hour shifts per day, which meant that the money I was making each day wasn't even enough for me to pay for the gas to drive there. So I eventually brought it up. I was like, hey, I need that schedule changed. And the manager told me, well, you're just going to have to live with it. And I said, oh, okay. And then I just went and clocked out and walked out the door, and I quit on the spot. So that's what.
And I had it good. When I was assistant manager at where I worked, they basically like gave me whatever schedule I wanted because they were so needy of employees because it was during that whole situation where nobody was wanting to work. So I kind of had it good. Like, I actually had a really, really decent little position in that. But I enjoy doing this a whole lot more because we're actually making a huge difference here. Meanwhile, I was just working, a regular, part-time job at the other place. But, live and learn.
Yeah.
Oh, and Publix represent. Hey.
he said Publix represent, and then he said just a minute later, ooh, boo, Publix sucks. After I get to the story. But anyways, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a question from Private Public 77, who says, when they make a movie of Battle of Hostomel Airport, which actor do you think will play Operator Starsky?
I think Starsky should play Starsky. I think that would be really funny, to be honest with you. And so with that, I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And with that, we're going to take 2 more questions from the chat, and then we're going to round out tonight's stream.
I gotta say, I think Al Pacino would play a really good Starsky.
At his age?
No,
I was about to say,
that's like the total opposite character. Like, Al Pacino is like a gangster type actor. Like, he plays those type characters. But no, just joking. But up next, we have a question from Giovanni Martinez, who says, when will the spring offensive begin?
The spring offensive will most likely begin in the spring. With that, I'm just kidding. It will most likely begin in late February. But then again, that's just an estimate because we actually thought something would have kicked off on either side by late January, and we're already in early February, and it didn't happen, so we were wrong with that. So it might be late February, but we're not even sure about that. So with that, I hope that does answer that fairly well, and we are on to the final question of the night. And so, who is the lucky last person who threw in the lucky last question of the night?
And that viewer is Daniel Kolita, who says, Enforcer, knowing that Ukraine is weak in the air defense field, how come the Russians did not use any planes and start bombing Ukraine? The Russians have 294 planes and Ukraine like 0.
The Russians actually have around 1,200 aircraft, and the Ukrainians have somewhere around 100 or 120. Actually, I think they have more than that. It was around 200 or so. And also a Dolphin Hortler, he's going off on Publix. But anyways, getting back to
Publix is a terrible place to work, by the way. Like, I worked there, I did not like it.
I'll get to that in a minute. We'll actually make a special aside right at the end of the stream to talk about that because I have an unequivocal hate for Publix. Publix is a great store to shop at. It's a terrible store to work at. But moving on from that and answering this question. The Russian Air Force can operate in Ukraine because of Ukraine's air defenses shooting down a large amount of their aircraft. So even if the Ukrainian Air Force is incredibly small, the air defenses make up for that and ensures that the Russians will pay heavily if they encroach on Ukrainian airspace. And so I hope we answered that question fairly well. And now it's time for me to go through my whole Publix spiel. I didn't like working at Publix, and that was like I found out that shopping at Publix is totally different than working at Publix. Because working at Publix, they try and indoctrinate you into this Mr. George cult. And I'm sure that if you're a former... Oh, we'll get to the Panama Floyds here in a second, too. if you are a former Publix or a current Publix worker, you'll know all about Mr. George. God bless Mr. George. He founded the heaven and the earth and the stars as well. He, in fact, was the guy who created God, according to Publix. And I cannot stand that. Like, that was extremely annoying to me. And whenever you get out of the sight of where a customer is, Mr. George is there in picture form. A portrait of him is everywhere. He's like Kim Jong-un of the Publix world. I don't like that. Like, that was weird to me. And on top of that, they also would try and sell you on this lie that they would give you shares and you became an owner of the company. But try and see how far that gets you if you're actually full-time, and it's not going to get you that far. As far as, you know, actually acting like an owner of the company, because that's just BS. Another thing is that their managers, from my experience, were two-faced. I'm sure that's the case in every place. I'm sure there's two-faced managers everywhere, and I'm sure there's really nice ones as well. But managers of Publix are two-faced because they'll do that crap that every company does where they say, we're a family, and then they'll screw you over. And then they'll act like because we're a family, it's okay, bear with it. Like, that's stupid. I didn't like that. And then on top of that, it was just terrible. Like, there's no point in going in it anymore. The training videos, though, were the worst. Like, the training videos you'll remember for all time. Like, when you will. Like, when you sit there and they say, a customer asked, who's the owner of this great store? And I pointed at my name badge and I said, I'm the owner. We are all owners. Like, what the? No, we're not. It's like, get
and that's
out of
when
here.
the customer went to jail for assault.
Yeah, that's when they sat there and said, you'll float too, and the wall started flooding with blood. I've got to be honest, I just don't like Publix as a place to work. I like it as a place to shop. I'll admit, I still shop there, but working there, oh man, I can't. I'll never work at Publix again. I worked there for, I think, 3 months. And that was enough for me. And I got hired on as pretty much a cashier. I was told I'd be doing nothing but cashier work, and then they ended up, on my last 2 months of working there, making me a janitor and then screwing me over with the hours. And at that point, I was done with it. I was like, I don't care. I'll quit. And especially when the manager sits there, after all this stupid crap you go through, and you try and tell them, hey, man, like, the schedule, it's not really working out for me. I'm losing money working here because I'm spending so much to get here. Well, just deal with it. I was like, what the hell do you mean just deal with it? I'll deal with it by quitting. How about that? But anyways, let me pull this. This will probably get you all a good laugh, Mr. George. Mr. George quotes. Oh, oh my God, look, they got it on corporatepublix.com.
And also, do you remember going to like the like first meeting they had you go to, like the orientation or whatever for the training?
Yes. Yes.
They had this thing where it was like they tried to like put you down or something. I remember distinctly there was a cooler in the like in the break room area of this like orientation like area that had like Coca-Cola brand Coke on one side, and then they had like the Great Value brand on the other side. They said you'll work your way up to the Coke brand, like in the break room or something, and you can only get the Great Value until you prove yourself. Man, that blew my mind. I was like, what? You gotta be kidding me.
Dude, I just remember all kinds of stupid crap at Publix. And then what's on top of that, the craziest thing, you work there, they say you're a family and they care for you, and Mr. George, you know, his loving grace, he cares for all of his employees. They won't even give you an employee's discount on anything. And like, it was stupid. It was so stupid. And then their food was outrageously priced, especially for the amount you're even getting paid. Even at $12.50 an hour, which is what I was getting paid, with the work schedule they had me on, I spent all of that money on gas. And then if I wanted to eat there for some reason, if I was like on a 4-hour shift, well, good Lord, that's like $12 for like 2 chicken tenders and a bottle of water. So you're hardly getting any food, you know, and that's the cheapest food I could find in the store. And then, you know, the place that this one was at, there was no fast food around. So you didn't even have the cheap food options. Like, it was so stupid. And then on top of that, the store drama, once you get in there, like, you're like, you know, I was just being me. I was like, oh, you know, there's like I'm not even going to get into the exact details of some of the stories, but then you hear about the store drama and things about other people working there, and then some managers. It's like, no, I don't. No, I'm gone. It's like, I don't want to be around here. I don't want to deal with this stuff. Like, it was totally different when I came in here. This isn't what it is now. But yeah, I didn't like it. Just
They did pay all right though. I think they paid like $12 an hour or something.
They paid me $12.50, and that is good pay, especially state of Alabama level pay. But when you have to include driving there, and they start scheduling you for like 2-hour shifts 5 days a week, and it costs more to drive there each day than you're making, then it's not good pay at all. And then you sit there and try and have that addressed, and then they just tell you to deal with it and just constantly lose money. Although the whole point of working is to make money. You know, and it's like, then you're just getting screwed over. So it's like, it doesn't even matter the pay. They're going to screw you over anyways.
Man, Andy 4C, he is devastated by the $12 an hour.
Well, I'll have you know, Andy, it's very good pay. I'm not scoffing at $12.50 an hour. I used to actually get paid at another job around $8 an hour. So it was almost like federal minimum wage these days. But when you include the price of gas, which was rising during that time drastically, I mean, like, it went up to, I think, $3 a gallon, $3.50 a gallon at that point, and you're driving there and back, it cost about $20 a day to drive there from where we were to that store, and then you're spending pretty much everything you made that day on gas, and then if you want to eat anything, well, you know, you're losing money that day. So, you know, in the end, it didn't work out. I was like, this sucks. Let's see here. And then Muck FS said, that's less than minimum wage in Seattle. It's crazy because some people are like, wow, that's a lot. And then some people are like, wow, that's like nothing. You're getting paid like slave labor. It just depends on the state. But yeah.
I thought I had made it big when I took that assistant manager spot and made $15 an hour. I thought I had hit gold.
Oh, also, Eric Kress said, not a good worker, they cut your hours, LOL. That's not true, okay? Because there was one worker in there who didn't do squat, but she was scheduled in every single hour. Not only would I do my work, but I ended up doing their work too, and then they just started slotting me in for less hours, and that was largely because I was going to college, and I told them my college schedule, so then they're like, oh, well, I guess we'll just slot you in for 2 hours in the afternoons after college. And it's like, what? It's like, you can't do that. It's like, it's got to be like 4 hours at least, so that way I can at least break even. You know, I don't want to be losing money. And that was totally different because there was another place that I worked at, and I'm not going to say it because it was like a one branch restaurant thing. They're like, there's.
He was joking, by the way.
Oh, I was about to be like, what? But anyways, there was another restaurant that I worked at, and it was great. I'm not gonna.
Also, Enforcer, we can't go on for too much longer because I have to wake up really early tomorrow.
Oh yeah, true.
And also we have a super chat to get to.
Anyways, oh yeah, let's get to Panama Floyd's, and then we'll round it out.
All right, so Panama Floyd puts in a 20 for our last super chat of the night and says, I want to see Aaron Paul play an American volunteer who'd had a bad experience in Afghanistan in a movie about the war.
And I thank you for the support, Panama Floyd. That is very specific. And for the reason of its specificity, I think that should happen. And so with that, call them out. Call them out. Thank you so much once again for the support, Panama Floyd. I hope we addressed that comment fairly well. And with that, it's time for us to round out tonight's stream. I thank you all so much once again for watching. If y'all did enjoy, make sure to hit the like button. Make sure to subscribe. And also make sure to comment. And with that, good night. Good luck, and I'll see you all tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern Time to cover the next 24 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine. See y'all then, and Slava Ukraini.
And also...
Yes. The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Згинуть
гинуть наші вороженьки, як роса на сонці. Запануємо ми, браття, у своїй сторонці. Душу й тіло ми положим за нашу свободу і покажем, що ми браття козацького роду. Душу й тіло ми положим за нашу свободу.